It's cold in here. Must be some toros in the atmosphere. What's going on? What's going on? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up, my loyal Mickey Figgies? My name is Dr. Kodo Sarfo. I am checking in from deep, live in the heart of Texas. This is the Late Night Show with Dr. Kojo. I am your host, Dr. Kojo, and we will be talking about 4 signs that you might be neurodivergent. We're going to get into it. We're going to have fun. We're going to do our thing. Appreciate you, bro. Thank you, Kwame. That made my day. Clean background. We switching it up. We switching it up. I told y'all, 2024, the stakes are going higher. We're going higher and higher and higher. I saw Raw Wave at the Super Bowl, so that's in my mind. But 4 signs that you might be neurodivergent. Mariah says that she's 100% neurodivergent, so Mariah already knows. But if you don't know, now you know, or you're about to know, because I'm going to give you 4 signs. But before we start that, another Raw Wave fan in the house. All right, before we start that, I want you to use the comment section to let me know where you're checking in from. Let me know your name if your name is not already in your description. It should be there if you're checking in from Facebook. If you're on YouTube, you might have a YouTube name like Shimmy, right? We got Shimmy here. I don't know what Shimmy's name is, but Shimmy, welcome to the live stream. Welcome to the live stream. We have Mariah checking in from Texas. Okay, a lot of Texas folk in the house all of a sudden. We have TikTok in the house too. So my TikTok people, Al Bell, what's up? Vanessa from Oregon on TikTok. How are you doing? I need to make sure I'm gonna prop my TikTok phone right there. Perfect. Los Angeles in the house, the home team. Shout out. Canada in the house, Quebec in the house. Okay. So we already have our international folks checking in. North Carolina, we said that. Jacob from Michigan, which is pretty much just southern Canada. Michigan is just southern Canada. We know that, right? You can walk from Detroit with a passport across the border. Oh, somebody told me that. I'm not sure if you can do that. Jessica from Wisconsin, what's up? Carl from Yellowknife, what's going on? Virginia in the house. Michigan in the house. Katie, I've missed you. How are you doing? Katie from Nebraska. Where in the world are you? Oh, this is a different background. We're streaming live from the heart of Texas. I was about to say Austin, but it's Dallas. We're streaming live from the heart of Texas. So Mariah, you're in Dallas as well. Okay, cool. And I'm still trying to think about what's going to be my second home from Los Angeles. I've always thought that Nashville, Tennessee was going to be my second home. And it probably will be because I have family over there. So I probably have to get a place in Nashville. But between Austin and Dallas, I'm not sure. Austin and Dallas, one of those cities might be a third home. Lean towards Dallas right now. Tacoma, Washington in the house. New York in the house. And Mariah is vouching for Dallas. It's a beautiful city. Very beautiful city. Northwest Pennsylvania in the house. Alyssa from Texas. Okay, so it looks like it's a couple of Texas folk in the house. Nashville is great. And Nashville is going to be home. Even though I'm a Los Angeles boy right now, Nashville will always be home. Yeah, I got too many folks out there. Dallas is nice. Dallas is probably the best city in Texas. And I just came from Houston, so I like Houston as well. I like Houston as well. Kendall says Nashville. Yeah, I love Nashville. If you love Nashville, we can be friends. Katie, I'm looking forward to seeing where the chat goes tonight as well. We're going to have fun tonight. We're going to have a special guest as well, a musician who is autistic, and she's also killing it in the game. So we will have a special guest in at some point tonight. But I want to talk about the 4 signs that you might be neurodivergent. And we'll see where this chat goes, right? This chat just kind of goes like all over the place. And I got ADHD, so I let my mind just take me where I want to go. So we'll see where we go. People on TikTok saying, Rome on TikTok said that they just cleaned the room in the balcony. Congratulations, Rome. Douglasville, Georgia in the house on TikTok. Washington is nice. And okay, let me address the content thing real quick. This is the only thing I'll say about it. Trish, Dr. Kojo is not going anywhere. You're going to get more skits. You're going to get more videos. Y'all going to get the best of me. I'm not going anywhere. I wrote 3 skits today. I wrote 3 skits today. 2 on ADHD, 1 on autism. I'm not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I just posted that post on Instagram to let you all know the downsides to social media success. When you do well in life, people will come for you, and people will come for your money. They'll come for your platform, and we can expect that this is going to keep happening. So this year, I'm going to shine. Like I said, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm sober. I'm going to give you all the best of me this year. So what can we expect? There's going to be a lot of hate. There's going to be naysayers. There's going to be people who don't want the brand to go where we're going to go. But for the people who are hating, like I said, I'm going to put on a show. So I hope you all have your LASIK surgery. Hope you have your glasses. If you're hating, I'm going to put on a show. Trish, we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. And Mickey Ficky is not going anywhere. Little Rock, Arkansas in the house. Atlanta in the house. And look, if you don't have haters, it just means that you're not doing your job, right? I'm doing my job. And of course, you can't always blame things on haters. I want y'all to keep me accountable because I'm a human being, so I could mess up on social media. Keep that in mind. I could mess up on social media. If I mess up, call me out. Please call me out. I am not any bigger than you. I'm not any better than you. But when there's a deliberate attack on my account, it just means that we're headed in the right direction. So for the people who are hating, like I said, buckle up. It's going to be a long year. 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 Why are the loves always late? Because we're neurodivergent. If you're watching this live stream and it's late wherever you're at, there's a good chance that you might be neurodivergent, right? Keisha on TikTok, I appreciate you, Keisha. I appreciate you. Kobe, we just got on. You have not missed anything. I know you're in West Virginia, but you haven't missed anything. You haven't missed anything. In fact, you came in time for the first sign that you might be neurodivergent. And keep in mind, before I get into this doesn't mean that you're neurodivergent. The only way to really know, right? The only way to know is to go to your local healthcare provider, your doctor, your psych NP, your family NP, your physician assistant, your social worker, your psychologist. The only way to really know is to go get an official diagnosis, right? So if I'm telling you all this on social media, it does not mean that you have ADHD. You still have to back it up with an official diagnosis. But if you have seen some of my videos and you can identify with a certain condition, there's nothing wrong with that. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. And someone said neurodivergents prefer to get to the point. Well, I would beg to differ. When you have ADHD, we like to talk all over the place. But Susan, even though you're imaginary, I've heard you. I've heard you. Let's drop the first sign for Susan's sake. Shout out to Susan. Susan, wherever you're at. The first sign that you might be neurodivergent. Difficulty in social interactions. What does that mean? Difficulty in social interactions. Now, this is very arbitrary, right? Difficulty. What is being smooth in social interaction? All of us who are watching this, the 97 people watching on the stream in front of me and the 48 people watching on TikTok, we have all had situations where we were talking in public, and after we went home, we looked in the mirror and we thought to ourselves, that was not our smoothest work. We felt like we were awkward. We just weren't on our A game. So this can happen with anybody, right? Neurodivergent or not. But when you are neurodivergent, let's just take autism, for example. When you're autistic, this condition is a condition where you struggle to communicate with the neurotypical world. It causes a lot of isolation, a lot of frustration. For some people, suicidal ideation, right? And we talk about that. And that's why this content is so important, because if you're feeling like you're the only one who's going through a certain thing, and then you see that other people are going through that thing as well, it validates you. It lets you know that you're part of the human experience. So that's why when it comes to autism, we worry about the isolation that comes. Isolation can come in many different ways. Maybe it's a kid who is dealing with aggression and they're autistic. It's going to be hard for them to socialize. Somebody who is struggling to make friends. Maybe they're unmasking and they're showing their true selves. So you're having a hard time connecting with people. Whether we like it or not, people need people. People are going to need people. So when every single social interaction feels like a quiz, when every single social interaction feels like somebody's watching you, when it feels like you have to rehearse everything to be accepted by other people, it could be a sign that, yeah, you might have to come to go see Dr. Kojo. You might have to come to my office. You may have to come to my office. You might have to come to my office. You may have to fill out the appointment and come through. Book a flight to LA or catch me in Dallas right now. You might have to come to my office. If somebody's talking to you, it should not feel like a quiz. Let's say Michaela Lee. If I'm talking to Michaela, and I'm saying, hey, Michaela, what's going on? How's your day, Michaela? If Michaela has to sit and think about it and say, my day was okay. I guess it was fine. I just asked Michaela how her day was. That can be really difficult. Think about how much energy it takes to have to come up with an answer on the spot. Because you're not really giving the person your true thoughts. You're telling them what you think they want to hear. That can be very, very difficult. How do you keep that up? How do you keep that up? I'm looking on TikTok and the Joker99 said, feeling like there's no way out. Yeah, it's a tough way to live, but a lot of us have lived that way. I know I've definitely, and I have ADHD to my knowledge. I am not autistic that I know of, but hey, maybe I haven't made it there yet. Ray says, knocking it out the park and still thinking you could have done more. I've seen that a lot. You have a social interaction where everything goes fine. Everything is fine. Nobody thought you were lame. Nobody thought you were a loser. But for some reason, in your head, you're like, just the way I looked at her, like she probably thinks I'm a creep, or that inner dialogue. That's how we have to drown this out with positive self-talk. We have to drown it out. Because sometimes your mind will default to the negative. Negative thoughts just come, but we have to train our brains to not believe every single negative thought that comes into our heads. The brain is geared to help you survive. It's not really geared to make you feel good about yourself. Not all the time. It just wants you to survive. So sometimes your brain can work against you. And Susan said it just happened today. So Susan, you had a awkward social interaction today. Hey, those things happen. It happens. Sometimes you stumble over your words. Sometimes you stutter. I stutter. Did it a lot as a kid. I stutter on this live stream sometimes. And it just is what it is. It just is what it is. Emily, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me. Jacqueline said, I got diagnosed at 39 because my daughter got diagnosed for the same issues I had. This is one of the more popular ways that people are getting a diagnosis. They go in and their child has these traits that you believe are autistic, or you believe your child has dyslexia or ADHD, whatever the case may be. And then as your child is talking to the healthcare professional, you're watching the assessment. The whole time you're thinking to yourself, like, I kind of do those things too. Like, hold up, I'd be doing that too. That was me all of fourth grade. And then that light bulb goes off. You can see the wheels turning. Boom. And now you get your diagnosis. Dark Nico Steele says, I have zero social cues. This is, all right, so this is a good example. So Dark Nico Studio, thank you for this comment. When I said one of the 4 signs that you might be neurodivergent is having a hard time in social situations. This is what I'm talking about. So having zero social cues. Let's say you're, talking to a girl you really like. You might not pick up on the fact that she's tired of talking to you. When people are tired of talking to you, what will they say? Like, oh, that's crazy. Yeah. Oh, yo, that's crazy. Oh, yeah, that's cool. That's crazy. Nah, I got something stuck in my eye. Look what I'm doing. This is awkward, right? If a girl starts to do this, just, but somebody might say, yo, oh, yeah, what are you about to get into? That's Black people talk. Anytime you're at somebody's house, it's a Black person, and they start to look around. Oh, I got something in my eye now. Anytime you're at a black person's house and they start to look around, they look on the floor and they go like this, and they're like, "Yo, shoot. So, what you about to get into?" That's their way of saying it's time for you to go home, right? But there's different ways of picking up on social cues, and this is more of a funny example. But social cues, when you're in danger, that's what I really worry about. When you're in danger, are you able to understand that you're in a situation where you have to get out fast? Sometimes you walk into a room and you can tell like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here right now. Like I should be anywhere but here. Right? Could be a social cue. Could be a social cue. Um, so Cookies and Mama, if you're talking about the joke earlier, I'm not sure what part you're talking about. Kate says also not being able to find words, so you explain the word. Ah, yeah. She doesn't ask for her bat. She asks for the thing she hits the ball with. Katie. So I like what Katie's saying. Sometimes you have a hard. This is something I see a lot in autism, having a hard time communicating. You can't say what you want to say. That can lead to a lot of frustration. And if you're able to point, or if you're able to describe, oh, it's the thing that you hit the ball with, that can help to relieve the frustration. So I'm not sure where I caught if Katie had left more than one comment, but I'm vibing with you right here. Kendall says small talk is such a difficult thing to navigate. Neurotypicals will use it as gauge for trustworthiness, which gives neurodivergent disadvantage in climbing the social ladder. Yeah. So yeah. You got a point because I'm not a fan. I hate small talk. I hate small talk, but I know how to keep a conversation going. That's probably a little bit of my masking. Trish, I don't have my water. I'm bugging tonight. Mickey Ficky. Oh, so Kate, you're talking about your autistic daughter. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, okay, that makes sense. See. I read the comments backwards. That's probably a neurodivergent thing. But Kate said, my autistic daughter takes everything literally. She was told her coach was going to be late. He broke down. She asked what happened to him. Was it his heart? I said, no, honey, that is typically broke down refers. Oh, got it. Okay. Right. That's a really good example right there. That's a really good example. Kobe, hold me accountable. I got some new content coming out, including content about schizoaffective disorder. I got some new content coming out. Don't worry. Dan says, I'm a people pleaser type, so I'm liked in social situations, but I am so drained afterwards. Right. So, all right. So I like what Dana's saying here. What was the first sign that you might be neurodivergent? Difficulty in social situations. So Dana is a people pleaser. So Dana knows what to talk about. If it's a Super Bowl party, Dana knows to talk a little bit about the Chiefs, a little bit about Taylor Swift, a little bit about the Niners and Brock Purdy. If it's a movie night, Dana knows to talk about Balto. She can talk a little bit about Barbie. Dana knows how to assimilate into different environments. But what's the cost? The cost is when Dana goes home, Dana is one tired Mickey Ficky because she's been doing her best to mask and fit into all these situations to make people laugh. Somebody says a joke and it's not funny. And Dana's like, Dana, I'm not mocking you. That's what I do when I laugh at a joke that's not funny. And then you feel so disgusted. You're like, that was the fakest laugh in the world. Like, what am I doing in my life? What am I doing in my life? Aaron, I appreciate you. The second sign of that you might be neurodivergent, and this right here probably goes more so with autism, but definitely with ADHD as well. Special interests, and this is where I'm interested in people's special interests because I know there's a whole lot of neurodivergent people watching tonight, whether you're watching live or whether you watch the playback. But special interests. You see this more with autism for sure, but I also see it with people who have ADHD. Normally, it's something that you are good at that other people are decent at, but for whatever reason, you are better than everybody else at this one thing, and or you are way more knowledgeable about this one thing than the majority of the population. It could be about the Civil War. It could be about World War II. It could be about presidents. It could be about cars. You might be somebody who knows every single Ford model that has come out. Now, in the day-to-day affairs, it might not get you far, but if you happen to be on Jeopardy and the $1 million question has to do with Ford cars, well, you win $1 million. So it depends. It depends. It depends, but special interest. And one way that people mask, I see a lot with women, is when you have a special interest that's not in line with what people would expect you to want to do. Right? So if you're, a lady and your special interest is the WWE, the majority of your friends in grade school are probably not into, Rey Mysterio and Shawn Michaels and Triple H and The Undertaker. But you, for some reason, you might just love the WWE. But if you're masking, you're not going to talk about it. You're just going to kind of, keep it to yourself until you find a safe space where you can talk all about the WWE. That will make your day. It'll make your year if you can talk about something that you genuinely enjoy and other people are enjoying it as well. Bobby, welcome to the chat. Welcome to the stream. I can tell you 10 million or 10,000 facts regarding Willie Nelson. And I remember everything about diagnosis. I'm a nurse. I'll have well, look, that's not, Katie, that's not a bad thing. Because if you hyperfixate on something, then you're going to give a good report. You're going to know what time the patient slept, what they ate, how much they ate, the intake, the output, whether they had a bowel movement. So if you hyperfixate at work, and I feel like a lot of neurodivergent people end up going into healthcare because they can juggle a lot of things at once. That's why I'm drawn to psych. Like when there's 3 different emergencies going on at one time, that's when you see my real magic. My real magic. And McCarmen Sanchez says, I do. I love the WWE. I don't mask it. That's what's up. Who is your favorite wrestler? McCarmen, I want to see who is your favorite wrestler. I said wrestler. What am I talking about? Lauren says, I've been burnt out right now that my special interest is not as interesting to me right now. Oh. Have you found a new special interest, or are you just kind of burnt out for a second? Let me know. Talk to me. And for our special, I'll bring on our special guest a little bit later. I am drawn to it. No day's the same. That's what's up. Malik says, neurodivergent healthcare worker here. What's going on? Lauren says her special interest was Power Rangers back in the day. Power Rangers was dope. Power Rangers was hella dope. I don't know too much about the Power Rangers, but I remember watching them as a kid. What did Nafi say? I find that when I stop caring about what people think and just fly by the seat of my pants, people either think I'm a comedic genius while having no clue to what they're laughing at or kind of ignore me. So non-fetus, I know what you're talking about, because a lot of comedy is not caring about what people think. I know that from my comedy career thus far. You get on stage, and if you care about what everybody thinks, you cannot do comedy. If you go into comedy being afraid to offend somebody, you can't do it. There's something beautiful that happens when you stop caring about what people think. Not that you want to go offend somebody and make a joke. Just it's the absence of any type of regard for anybody's opinion, at least to where it's above what you feel about yourself. Like, you listen to people, but you don't really care about their opinion of you. That's a very, very beautiful place to be in life. Very nice place to be in life. Erica, what's going on? How you doing? Tyree, sorry to hear this. Sorry for your loss. Or Tai, I apologize. Sorry for your loss, Tai. Sorry for your loss. And let me get to the third. So this is similar to special interest. And I think Katie's already mentioned it before. But the third sign, you might be neurodivergent. Let me see. Jessica says, that's so interesting. A mother and grandmother are nurses. Neurodivergent, undiagnosed mom of 2 autistic kids. And look, Jessica, you know what's so funny to me? There's so many undiagnosed mothers and undiagnosed parents who are pretty sure that they have ADHD, that they have some type of neurodivergence, they're on the spectrum, and they have kids who had the diagnosis, but they're okay with just kind of chilling, like, I got it, I'm good. And I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. If that's how you rock, there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, as a healthcare professional, I'm like, see if you can, back it up with, if you can go to a healthcare professional to just to get it diagnosed officially. But in the United States of America, healthcare is unfortunately something that is not accessible to everybody. Good question right here. Good question right here. So when you see neurodivergent on the internet, more than likely they're talking about ADHD and or autism. But you can throw dyslexia in there. You can throw dyscalculia in there. You can throw traumatic brain injuries in there as well. Neuro, brain, divergent, different. So technically you could throw bipolar disorder in there, a different brain, but I don't see people don't really refer to bipolar as neurodivergent, but you get the point. And the tapping point is saying, how do you broadcast live landscape? Well, I use StreamYard. Anytime I do my late night show on Mondays, I use StreamYard, and so far so good. It's getting a little bit better. The vibe is always, aesthetically, it looks a bit more pleasing, and I like that. All right, the third sign that you might be neurodivergent is you have this ability to hyperfocus. And let me reply this real quick. What would be the benefit to get a diagnosis if you don't need accommodations? All right, great question. Why get diagnosed if you don't need the accommodation? For some people, not for everybody, but just knowing that you have ADHD and or autism or wherever the case may be, just knowing that you have this condition allows you to be easier on yourself. And that's all a diagnosis is, guys. A diagnosis is a name, a term that best explains the things that you're going through. So now you can take the blame off of yourself for being so lazy and unmotivated and tired and uninspired. And you can say ADHD. And for some people, it empowers you to go out there and to get it, because then you're not hating yourself as much. The self-hate that comes with the late diagnosis of ADHD, just ADHD can be quite heavy. Quite heavy. Let me see. I need some water to make it picky. My entire life made sense of my diagnosis. Katie, you see, this is what I'm talking about. And this is the same thing that I went through. My entire life made sense when I got diagnosed with ADHD. I knew I had it, but I was in grad school. I wasn't who I am today, so I couldn't diagnose myself. So I was like, oh, I think I had this condition, but I'm not sure. But I knew I had it. And even the girl I was dating at the time, she would always say, oh, you're so ADHD. And it would kind of hurt, if I'm being honest, because I knew I had it, but I hadn't confirmed it. So it was like she was looking through me and she was saying, oh, you're so ADHD, but I didn't want to act like it hurt me. So I was like, like I was just trying to play it off. But deep down, it did hurt. It hurted me. It hurted me for real. It hurted me. Dr. Peter, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I know that the content is helping out a lot of people, and I'm grateful to be able to do this, and it helps me as well. So the movement will always, as long as I have something to say about this, we will always keep this movement going. But the third sign that you might be neurodivergent, an ability to hyperfocus, okay? And as I say this, before I say this, on TikTok, Adrienne said, the grief that came with a late diagnosis of ADHD was something I didn't expect. I like that. So Adrienne, I wish we could have the TikTok comments on there too. But Adrienne says, the grief that came with a late diagnosis of ADHD was something I didn't expect. Wow. Because you think to yourself, you say, wow, did I have to go through those failed marriages? Did I have to go through that bankruptcy? Did I have to go through those max credit cards? Did I have to go through all the heartbreak and pain? Or could I have gotten this diagnosis when I was 17? It would have changed my life. So yeah, that grief is a Mickey Ficky. That grief is a Mickey Ficky. Be kind to yourself if you can. Be kind to yourself if you can. All right, so the third sign that you might be neurodivergent is you have this unique ability to hyperfocus. Before we go too deep into it, I want to distinguish the hyperfocus from mania, okay? So mania is a distinguishing feature of bipolar disorder. Bipolar 1, bipolar 2, cyclothymia. This is when, for a span of at least 4 days, you're good with little to no sleep. You're extremely motivated. Sometimes you're talking really fast. Your decisions become a bit more questionable. You might spend a lot of money, thrill-seeking behaviors. When you're manic, you can get a lot of things done. You're very, very productive, okay? You're very productive when you're manic. When you're hyper-focusing, it should not impact your sleep as much. Now, you might hyper-focus deep into the night, but it doesn't mean that you're manic. The hyper-focus just means that I'm working on this right now. Don't bother me. Like, I'm working on this. I got to get this due. I got to get this turned in before it's due. I'm working on this project. I got my sticky notes here. I got my water here. I'm working on this right now. Don't break my focus, because if you break it, I might not get it back. So I'm going to remove all distractions. I'm going to zone in on this. Whenever you're studying for a standardized test, SAT, NCLEX, MCAT, whatever the case may be, when you hyper-focus before a standardized test, normally you tend to do better. Now, if you're manic, you probably would do well as well. You shouldn't do too bad, but a unique ability to hyper-focus. I see this a lot. This is truly an ADHD thing. This is an ADHD thing. Autism, sure, but when autistic people hyper-focus, in my experience, is normally from reluctance to deviate away from a routine. Like, I got this routine and I'm going to do things this way and I'm going to lock it and get it done. Now, you could have ADHD and autism, and you might just hyperfocus in many different unique ways, but hyperfocus is a neurodivergent thing. With the hyperfocus, there's an end. Yeah, but with mania, it continues. That is correct. That's correct. Kay says, thank you for that explanation. I've questioned if my hyperfocus is mania. So, Katie, you're welcome, first and foremost. And if you've never questioned whether your hyperfocus was mania, you probably weren't hyperfocused. I'll just say that. Because in my best moments of hyperfocus, I normally ask myself, like, hold up, how much sleep have I got? What's the Aura Ring telling me? What's the Apple Watch shot? Am I manic? But the mania obviously doesn't end, and the hyperfocus, somebody can throw you off your game. Or I could be focusing on something and somebody's like, oh, this is happening downtown. The moment I leave my seat, the hyperfocus is gone. It's gone. Michelle Cryer, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And the veils will continue. We're not going anywhere. We're not going nowhere. So G, hold that thought, because you jumped the gun. I'm going to talk about romantic relationships in a second. That was my fourth one. But yeah, you got me. I'm proud of my neurodivergence. I've been able to crush through medical journals and find repurposed. Oh, Cindy, that's what's up. Cindy, I like that. Shout out to Cindy. And let me reply to our special guest who's coming on. All right. Let me see. My daughter's autism ADHD diagnosis helped me parent and break some serious generational crap. Ooh, Mickey Ficky. This is deep. Because what do we know about ADHD and autism? This runs in families. So back in the day, you used to get beat over this. I mean, I come from the South, they'll beat you if you can't get your work done on time. They'll beat you if you're talking back, being defiant. They just call that a bad kid. There was no, think about it. Back in the day, there was no IEP plan. You were just a bad kid, right? You were just a bad kid. And teachers will say, "Oh, that's a bad kid. That's a bad kid." Chantel, no worries. All the live streams can be, I don't ever delete the live stream. So keep that in mind. And I will be repurposing these clips and throwing them on YouTube and on Facebook in shorter bits. Because I enjoy the content that I make. I like watching my live streams, but I can't watch a 2-hour live stream after I've recorded it. But I can watch a 7-minute highlight clip of the live stream, like boom, 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 boom. So that way my focus isn't like go all over the place. Shame for eating, not being able to clean my room. Yeah. Back in the day, they used to punish you for this. The rage that comes when I'm interrupted while activating hyperfocus mode. Lynn, I know what you're talking about. I hate this so much. Like when I'm focusing on something, StreamYard will give you suggested clips. Okay, I gotta look into that. I definitely gotta look into that, Savage. But when it takes me forever in a day to focus. But when I do start to focus, it's like, don't break this focus. Don't just leave me alone. Just leave me alone for a little bit, and then we can talk afterwards. But right now, it took me 3 hours to focus. So I gotta stay locked in. To my little brother, I'm on live. I'm on live. See, my little brother's calling me right now. If I wasn't on live, I'll pick up because I always pick up when family calls. But it's not really breaking my hyper focus because I'm already present. Oh, yeah. No judgment ever on this side. No judgment ever on this side. Tomorrow, I'm gonna call after. I'm gonna call after. Corporal punishment in the 90s in Mississippi sucked. Right, yeah. So Lauren, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 31. And I remember growing up in school back, what was the year? Like late 90s, right? Nashville, Tennessee. The teachers will send you home with a sheet of paper saying, do we have permission to spank your child? If we have permission to spank your child, sign here, write your name, and let us know. And if your child acts up at school, we will spank your child. Like, I remember when that was the thing. I don't know. I'm probably, giving away I already said I'm 31, but I remember when that was a thing. You could spank people's kids in school. Maybe that's only in the South, but I don't know. All right, I'm going to drop the fourth sign that you might be neurodivergent. And then our special guest just hopped in the chat. I'm very grateful to have our special guest because not only did she wait a long time for me, she was extremely patient and still hopped on tonight. So we will get to the special guest in just a second. Let me see what this right here. Crystal says, I received my diagnosis at 35 and it took major ongoing advocacy for myself. Crystal says, ladies, if you are struggling, don't give up. Ladies, if you're struggling, listen to what Crystal said. Don't give up. Don't give up. And Davidson County doesn't have anything. Okay, so they got rid of corporal punishment in Tennessee. Okay. So only I had to go through that. Right. They had paddles in my school too. Okay. So I guess you were the unlucky ones. All right, let me drop the fourth sign that you might be neurodivergent. Your relationships have a similar theme to them. Your relationships have a similar theme to them. What does that mean? You normally date the same person, but they have different faces. You may have dated somebody who was from the Philippines, somebody who was from Canada, somebody who was Hispanic or Black or white, but your relationships have a similar theme to them. You end up getting with the same type of person, and it can come from the inability to pick up on social cues or potentially the trauma that you picked up. Because what do we know about growing up neurodivergent? I think it can be a very traumatic experience without a couple of things in place. But most of us don't know that we have ADHD, autism, whatever the case may be until we're older. So until then, you're going to pick up some trauma that goes unresolved and compounds. Hey, before you know it, you blink your eyes, you're in a codependent relationship. You're in a toxic relationship. But this person makes you feel good. The person makes you feel really good. And anytime your desire to be with a certain person is stronger than your desire for a healthy relationship, you're screwed. You can set your watch. You can set your watch. You're screwed. Now you can watch this live stream in time, and then you're gonna be unscrewed. But without knowing, you're screwed because you want this person so bad that you forget that you also want a healthy relationship. I do believe that is a neurodivergent thing. Now, it's not just neurodivergent individuals. Anybody can struggle with this, but I believe you're a bit more susceptible. Random question. Lauren, happy early birthday, Lauren. Drop the birthday emojis in the chat for Lauren. Jessica says, and being creatures of routine, what we look for, right? Yeah. If you've never been loved in a certain way that you want to be loved in, but a lesser version of love is okay for you. You don't want to be by yourself. You say, okay, this is permissible. I'll take this. You could be in some trouble. If you think you're lonely now, wait until tonight. Which thousand people saying they have ADHD. So, Missy, my thoughts on this is you could identify with a diagnosis, but I would prefer if you could double back around and check in with a professional just to confirm it. But I do understand the things that prevent people from getting an accurate diagnosis in 2024. It's not as simple as I would like it to be. Lauren, you're completely correct. Before we bring on our special guest, your relationships and your friendships can have a similar theme to it. That's why a lot of neurodivergent individuals, as you grow up, as you unmask, as you gain confidence in yourself, you finally have the strength to drop relationships that you should have dropped years ago, but you just wanted a friend. But when you wake up, and you're strong enough, you start to see who stays and who leaves. I seem to keep dating a lot of people with cluster B personality traits. Hey, and could be your creature of habit or could be unresolved trauma, not diagnosing you. All right, so those are let me recap the 4 signs that you might be neurodivergent. Difficulty in social interactions, number 1. Number 2, special interest. Number 3, a unique ability to hyperfocus. And number 4, your relationships and friendships, I'll add that part on as well, have a similar theme to them. And let me see. I don't think about them after I'm done. I divorced a man and was done. No, let's try makeup. Nope. I was like, you have a week to get your stuff. Okay, Katie. Hey, congratulations. And sometimes it takes people a while to get there. Sherry says, nearly 50 and have only got rid of so-called friends last year. I feel more free. And you go through the period of loneliness, but eventually you do feel a bit more freer. You do feel a bit more free. Ari, also, we're heading into overtime now. It's the bonus show. We got a special guest here. Oh, am I able to add the special overlay where we can have the 2 screens at one time? Probably not, Mickey Ficky. I got to ask my assistant to help me out with that. Either way, I'm going to bring on our special guest, Angel, and let Angel introduce herself, and let's get into it. Angel, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Welcome to the bonus show with Dr. Kojo. But before I even get into the show, thank you so much for being patient with me. Just getting into this Airbnb was a nightmare. I was getting even a little bit irritated with my assistant, and he didn't do anything to me. So I had to take a chill pill. I just had to just catch my breath, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna just catch my breath and not get irritated. And then I thought about you. I'm like, yo, she's been waiting for what, 5 hours now.
It's all good.
Goodness.
I just I eat at a certain time, and then I was starting to get I'm hypoglycemic, so I have to be really careful about when I eat.
So you have to have something to eat. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, can you introduce yourself and let us know how you found out about my platform and just a little bit about who you are and also where you're from, if you don't mind sharing.
Sure. My name's Angel Deradorian, and currently I'm in California. I kind of live between New York and California, and I'm a professional musician. And I recently discovered, I'm 37, and I recently discovered that I have ASD. And I found you on YouTube. I think I was just, like tons of research because something finally clicked. I suspected it for maybe the last year, but it's a little harder when you're older because you have so many experiences. So I was kind of in denial to an extent, I suppose.
So I'm a bit curious. What was the first thing that made you think to yourself, I might be autistic?
I have one neurodivergent friend who suggested it. And then I had another friend I met up with because I started. It's kind of funny. I saw them on Field. Do you know this app?
What's the app about?
Field is like a dating app, but it's more like queer community based dating app.
Gotcha. Never heard of it.
And I saw a friend of mine on there, and I met up with them, and they suggested it because I think the one thing I started to notice, because I've always been kind of more in a like hetero world, music world, or whatever, social world, that when I started like branching out and meeting more people in the queer community and understanding how much more communicative they seem in general, I was like, wow, there's like a whole world of people out here who just want to like be real and transparent and like have conversations. And I'm not trying to like diss on the neurotypical world by any means, but I you know, it was that, and I had like a really intense meltdown at the end of the year after I went on a tour, and I had done like everything in my power to prevent any like burnout from happening, and it still was so intense that I was like, I don't think this is like considered normal.
Uh,
So
so you pretty much
yeah.
figured out that you had to find a new way to live. The way that you were living was not sustainable in a sense.
Um it I'm so used to being a musician because I started touring in bands when I was 16, and that environment is full of mental health issues and addiction issues, and very unconventional lifestyles, nomadism. So like I've that's all I've known kind of as a teenager into adulthood. I mean, I graduated high school when I was 15, and I was like a straight A student, and I got serious burnout at 15, and I was able to take a test in California that you just take a math and English test and went to college. So I just wanted to start my life. But I was, you know, once I started to put the pieces together, I realized how, I mean, a lot of musicians are really awkward people, really traumatized. So you're just around a bunch of people who are trying to figure out their lives, and they're trying to like be in a community where they either are, trying to feel understood, or they're kind of exacerbating each other's trauma.
Wow.
So I've never like worked like for bosses for very long. I've gotten fired a lot. When I was like, finally, I understand why.
Was the showing up on time part that was hard, or getting too many demands from a boss that pissed you off, or both?
Showing up on time was never an issue for me, probably because I have like so much anxiety about being late. But if I worked in restaurants, I would be just hyper vigilant the whole time, like because I didn't want to let anyone down. So I'm like, I got to get all these things done super quickly, and then here I am dropping like a tray of full of glasses back in the kitchen, and like hitting burnout every night trying to like lift 50-pound bags of trash because no one
Wow.
would let me be a server. They're like, you can be a busser, but like don't talk to the people. So,
Did you find yourself being over talkative and talking to the different people in the area?
in work situations, like at restaurants and stuff,
Right, right, at work.
I would talk to my coworkers. I mostly talk to the kitchen staff. They got along much better with the kitchen staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old were you at this point in time?
How old was I?
Right.
This was like teen years and early 20s. And then by the time I was 20, 21, I was like touring the world. So I just was in a band that toured a lot.
Uh,
So I
and
didn't have to like, I would sublet my place and just go on tour and like, that helped me stay alive.
No, I truly believe that because I mean, from having lived in LA for the past 3.5 years, I know how, not to call it a fake world, but it's a different world. It's not your 9 to 5. Like, time doesn't really matter. It's just more so, do you do your thing or do you not do your thing? People are waking up at 6 p.m. and you do comedy shows, or you do shows until the 3, 4 a.m. and then you tour around the world. You don't have a sleep cycle. There's no circadian rhythm for you. You just kind of live life. And I see how you said it saved you, because if you were forced to be in a neurotypical world, your body may have rejected it. So do you think that being neurodivergent and just kind of having a schedule that allows you to do what you want to do, was it helpful for you? It looks like it was helpful for you back then. Is it still helpful now?
It is in some ways, but I think because my body's getting older, that I definitely understand this. This is the black and white thinking stuff that I finally understood. Like, it's hard. Like touring, you might do that a few months out of the year, and then you come back from that. A lot of musicians get really depressed because it's just such a stark change in your daily routine. And then you don't really know what to do with yourself for a little while. And then you have to figure out how you want to proceed. Like if you have another project going on, or like if you're going to have to invent, I always have to have something going on. Otherwise I feel really like, I'm like, what am I doing? So I'm always making jobs for myself and always trying to put something together to look forward to. And I can do like a lot of stuff, but I just end up burning myself out because I have a really hard time relaxing. Like I have insomnia, I'm hypervigilant, I have anxiety, I have like all kinds of stuff, which made me think that I didn't have ASD for a long time. But now I'm like, oh, I like see PTSD. It doesn't stop because it's like two very different realities, I guess. Being on tour, being in social groups, having to learn social interaction, etiquette, mannerisms in a kind of world that is not typical in and of itself.
Right.
So it's really strange. And then when I've had periods of my life where I've lived alone in the woods for like over a year and didn't really see anyone, and I would build myself these very specific routines. It'd be like, wake up at 7, you're gonna meditate, then you're gonna chant, then you're gonna make food, then you're gonna like do this, and always these really detailed lists of routine because I know somewhere inside of me I need routine, but I need it on my terms. And going to a 9 to 5 job is like crushing my soul. That's what it would feel like. My heart is crumbling into a ball if I had to go to a job and work for a person and like revere their status.
Yeah, a lot of neurodivergent people say that, like, working for somebody else is almost physically impossible. I mean, not impossible, but it almost feels like you're rejecting yourself in a way.
Yeah. I mean, there's a part of me like, and I started to understand PDA, demand avoidance recently. And I was like, that's very strong in me, this type of resistance of like with authority or being controlled in some way. And then on the flip side, like I had to really learn how to stop being controlling in myself or rigid, because you have to be flexible in these social dynamics in the music industry too. So like in your community, in your bands. So I've really had to work. So it feels like I haven't like ever lived inside of a comfort zone. And yeah, I mean, that's just what kind of muddies the whole reality as well. You're just like constantly being exposed to these different dynamics and these different situations and trying to navigate them, and different people, different personalities. So in that way, I feel like I've been able to adapt socially at times, but because I've never really had jobs, not for long at all, where I've had to work for a boss or like have to show up, if I even like think about having to do that, I'm just like,
I can't do it.
No, I'm gonna go back to sleep now because like I cannot deal with this right now.
And just being curious, what was the band that you toured with?
I toured in a band called Dirty Projectors, and this is probably a band that I don't know if a lot of people who follow you would. I don't know who.
I mean, you never
I
know.
don't know who follows you, but I'm just saying, like,
You
it
never
was a
know.
very popular independent band, and kind of like the height of our time as a group would be from like 2007 to 12. So
Okay, and were you a singer or a drummer or
everything,
every?
multi-instrumentalist, vocalist. It was really like complex music, kind of like, I mean, I've been in so many bands, and like I do my own music now, and I have a different project now, but band, but yeah, in that band we were learning like really complex instrument parts, and then doing very counterintuitive, like complex vocal stuff, like Balkan singing, which is like, I don't know if you've heard like Balkan singers, but it's this very like kind of can be like kind of like shrill or abrasive, like almost screaming, in these very tight harmonies, like very dissonant cluster chords. So it takes a ton of practice and effort and energy to play that music.
Never heard of it.
And we did really well because we were a really good live band. And that this was like this is like the final era of live music before the music industry really changed, and like DJs and solo acts became more,
Uh,
became easier to tour that way, because the industry changes all the time and money changes, and like the possibility of even touring at all is so hard.
when's the last time that you just did nothing?
um like half of January, because I was in such burnout that I had to force
Oh,
myself.
you're burnt out.
Well, I like literally couldn't do anything. That was really, really scary and frustrating for me, because as soon as I'm not doing something, I think I'm being like lazy, or
Yeah.
there's not enough time, and I have all these ideas, but like my body is wired and my brain is exhausted, and like it was just very physically intense, and so I just had to make myself rest. Really hard for me to do. Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the way a lot of neurodivergent people get rest when your body has just decided for you that we're gonna take a break.
Yeah, and I could feel this one coming, and I was like, "Whatever. I'm gonna, like, just, like, crash into the ground, because I won't stop until I'm forced to stop," I guess. Yeah.
And prior to your diagnosis, what did you think an autistic woman was like before you were diagnosed?
Um, I'm not totally sure. I think, well, when I was talking to my therapist, and he thought I had this, like, OCD, and I was doing research around high masking autistic women, and some of the stuff sounded kind of like familiar to me, and then some stuff not so much, but I don't know. Like I don't really know what I thought. Maybe because I just never even, maybe because the word is now under this larger umbrella of a description,
Right.
where I guess if I were to describe myself, it would be like more Aspergery, or like uh, I can I can like mask really well probably at this point.
I
So
can definitely pick up on that. And we used to say Asperger's, and now in the DSM-5 is just all autism, which confuses people
yeah,
even more because when there was Asperger's, people are, oh, that's that really really smart kid who, you know, they're kind of autistic, and now it's like all autism spectrum disorder, which I find it for the general public to find that a bit more confusing. But somebody had mentioned up earlier in the chat, they said that you're really good with eye contact. Do you think that being a musician and touring, did that help you mask because you got to observe
oh,
behavior?
I mean, I'm like, I'm just looking into the dot right now, so
Right.
it doesn't really matter. I don't feel like I'm making eye contact, but I got better at making eye contact when I just started looking in one eye, like the person in
Oh,
one eye, and
okay, wow.
even then, sometimes like I have a hard time, especially if like I start to go into like OCD brain. a little bit. Like I'll just start getting distracted. And since I've been unmasking, I've become more dissociative again and less eye contact again. And
Mm.
it's funny because it made me realize how hard I've been trying to
Wow.
just like
That's profound.
smile and to look you in the eye and say thank you after the show and make sure everybody has what they need and like, I'm signing your record or whatever it is. And I love people. I really do. I love connecting with people. I love talking, but like I am the person at the party that corners one person and then we go into something really deep and then 3 hours and then I leave. But on tour, you can't do these things on tour. I
Those are
mean,
the best
maybe you can,
people. Those are the best conversations.
oh yeah, I've noticed that if I'm at a party that feels boring to me, I'll just start like slightly digging into like maybe ask a weird little question and just see if people will get into it, and they do. They love it. So I'm like, well, it makes it more fun for me. So
That's awesome
yeah.
that you're so self-aware, and sometimes being so self-aware about these things could make it more frustrating because you know that you will be gassed out after the social interaction, but you do crave that intimacy in a way with just people as opposed to the
Yeah.
opposite, which is just straight up isolation.
I deeply value conversation with people because I see all of those opportunities to have those conversations as learning experiences, and they're always intertwined with my philosophy of life, or it adds to my creative practice.
Mm.
So it almost doesn't even matter what or who the person is, because usually you can gain something from any of
Yeah.
these conversations. Yet, now that I'm at this like very high point of burnout, I'm kind of like finally coming out of it. I was just like lately, I just had a like meltdown at a concert. Meltdown being like, I got to get out of here now. Somebody smells like mango and coconut, like herbal essence, shampoo, and the sound is wrong in this space. And like, I'm in K Town and it's super intense in K Town. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, I got to drive home and in traffic at nighttime and all the lights are super bright. And like, I was just getting more and more frustrated. And that's me like allowing myself to be autistic or whatever. Like where usually I'm just like trying to control everything so much so that I don't become uncomfortable. But finally, when you hit that kind of breaking point, this is my experience. I know like it's got to be different for everybody, but I'm very confused by what unmasking means, and I'm still trying to understand it. But
I was just about to ask you that.
yeah,
I see it to be more so of you returning back to your true self. But if you've been masking your whole life, Angel, you may not know who you are.
yeah, in some ways, I feel like because I was in music, I didn't have to mask entirely because I
Oh,
had like an outlet for at least for my creativity. And I was around a lot of intense personalities. So we're just kind of like all being intense in a way. But there's stuff where I'm like really rethinking it now because I can be pretty blunt or pretty unfiltered. And I'm just like, oh, this offends somebody? Like I still don't sometimes know that I'm offending. The thing that I started doing though consciously was that no matter what, whatever someone says to me, I take it at face value. And I know that's not always the case, but it's my way of like it's a kind of type of demand avoidance again, or is it PDA or whatever, where it's kind of like if you can't communicate your truth to me, and then I believe what you're telling me, and that doesn't sit with you because you're not being honest, and you get upset with me, then what am I gonna do? I can't sit here and like figure you out
right.
anymore. Like, and so that can cause issues, but it's also like a way of actually kind of weeding people out a little bit
Yeah.
sooner. But then I'm like, am I borderline? Because like
Oh, that wouldn't
because I can be so forgiving of people, and
true.
well, I'm so good at so good at like understanding psychology and the root of the person.
Mhm.
Does this make sense? To like their trajectory or like how they've why they behave, because I can pick up on all these little details.
Right.
Then and I come from a dysfunctional family, so when you grow up in that, you're always learning how to anticipate somebody and their behavior when it's
Mm-hmm.
somebody's behavior is inconsistent. So I see all the signs, but I'm like, you know what? We're all adults now, so I'm just going to take you at face value. And if that's not your truth and you get upset with me, then that's on you. But like, I
Right.
cannot hold it anymore.
It's way too exhausting to try and. It's almost as if you're making the decision for the other person. You're not giving them a chance to just let it be what it is, because it's a form of control in a way.
On their part or on my part?
I would say more so on your part.
It's a way to like kind of keep myself safe, actually, because I
Right, right.
think one of the things I've learned about ASD folks is that we tend to be very trusting of new people and relationships before we learn how to earn trust or like build
Most.
it over time.
Mm.
And I remember when I was young being like, "Oh yeah, I trust everyone." Like I said it out loud. I was like, "Oh," and I was talking to another person. They're like, "Wow, I never trust anyone right away." And I was like, "Why? Aren't we all friends?"
Mhm.
And I was like, "No, that's not how." It was like not how the
Good.
most of the world works. So,
How's that impacted you as you've gotten older? Has it changed how you view friendships and relationships?
like looking through this lens now
Uh,
of ASD or
More so of what you do to make sure that you're protecting yourself in a new social interaction. Does that carry over into friendships and in relationships?
yeah, it's I still sometimes have falling outs with people. I've tried so hard. I've done therapy, I've studied psychology intensely in depth. I have read tons of books on neuroscience or neuropsychology and Buddhism and spirituality and non-attachment and attachment theory and all these things to really understand why relationships seem so complex. And so I have kind of learned how to read red flags, but there's another, I still would go against my intuition at times with people and regret it later.
Yeah.
So I think I'm much better at it now, and I'm much better at not fearing the loss of a relationship. So like I've really worked on attachment stuff.
That's a really good sign. That's a really good
It
sign.
is, yeah, it is. But then the weird thing I've noticed is because I can be so logical. Like if I don't know if maybe some people in the comments might have an answer to this, but as a person with ASD, I have a very logical mind, and then my emotions are very delayed. So when I'm in emotional situations or I get into entanglements, sometimes maybe a romantic entanglement, for example, and it's very unclear what the dynamic is, there's eventually a point where I'm like, "Can you just tell me that you don't want to do this with me?" And then they go, "Okay, no, I don't want to do it." And I go, "Thank you, done." That's all. That's all I need.
Is it that simple? Like you'll tell somebody and you'll get a clear answer?
If I can get a clear answer from any person and
Mm.
it's some kind of boundary, if it's a no, that's fine. What's very hard for me is the non-communication, this like subtle communication or picking up on
Mm.
people's subtle cues, because I'm like, I need closure, and if I can get the closure, then my brain can close it. And it's really kind of that easy for me, because I get it. It's not like, all relationships end, right? They're all
Right.
going to end at some point. You can't always control when that is, but you can too, in the sense of if you know it doesn't feel good and it's been going on for this long,
Mm-hmm.
it's got to stop somehow. And it might not be me who can stop it. I'm working on that part, like not having closure with certain people and just having to accept the fact that like something went wrong and like that's it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because so far, like you've done a lot of work, everything sounds good, but let's say you come across a person, and let's say you're a giver, and for some reason, takers know how to find givers. I don't know
Oh
how they
yeah.
do it, if they have a like, binoculars, but takers can find givers. So if you come across a taker and you're asking, hey, so what are we? What's going on? A taker more than likely would not say, oh yeah, we're just here doing this. The more so say, oh well, I think maybe we could be and keep you in that loop of frustration, which could be
Yeah,
another hurdle for you to navigate down the line.
I think like there's some people who are very charismatic, like narcissistic people who really know how to play it for like until around 6 months to a year. They're just going to start revealing who they are. And
Listen,
sometimes the manipulative, confusing communication and like thinking we're friends or we have some kind of connection. I'm like, okay, they said that kind of weird, but maybe that's just because we don't really speak the same language.
mhm.
But what I've had to like come to know is like manipulative people or narcissistic people, they're kind of just like making stuff up. I don't know if I almost cussed. I don't know if I can cuss, but they kind of like make.
Let it out, let it fly, let it fly.
I cuss a lot, so I'm like really trying.
Let
Uh,
it
but no, I mean it's if the communication starts to get too abstract and like and then it feels like someone's like backpedaling or then covering up the
yeah.
last thing they said or like they keep changing the story a little bit.
Mhm.
That's when I notice it's going to become very toxic. But it's still, I mean,
Mhm.
it still can be hard because I think I just like will really want to understand people,
Right.
and I know that we're all different. So
But as you've become better, because I can tell you've done a lot of inner work, you've gone to great lengths to understand yourself more. But as you become better, do you ever stay in a situation that you know is not the healthiest for you, and you know that based off of pattern recognition is headed in a direction that you've seen the story before, but you just kind of like hang in there a little bit longer, hopeful thinking, wishful thinking?
I think I'm pretty good at. I think I'm finally pretty good at cutting it pretty soon.
And
But I've been in years long entangled situations.
I was just about to say, do you remember the catalyst that got you there? What was the one thing that happened where you're like, all right, no more?
Well, I mean, I think it was definitely a buildup because not only was that like in romantic situations, it's also in these band dynamics or relationships within the community
Uh,
where, just like any entertainment industry, there's people that want different things out of their careers. And I talk about this on my Instagram a little bit, how, people are so sometimes desperate to fend for themselves that they will hurt somebody in the process of their own like egotistical drive.
yeah,
And
really.
maybe I'm kind of losing what you were saying, but
Yeah, I'm still following you. I'm able to go around
okay.
like this and come back.
Yeah, because the other thing is there's like this many ideas happening at
Yeah,
the same time. But
I'm following you every step of the way.
okay, good, it's good. Oh yeah, it was like when to stop. I started to feel more confident, like knowing when to stop because I made good friends too. Like I have people I really trust now and who got my back and have like very similar values to mine. And that's another thing like we all got to be doing. This is actually why I studied astrology and became an astrologer because I needed to learn like basic principles of life. And I studied Hindu astrology, and one of those things that is really understanding your values because um, one of the things like the Buddha talks about, like the most spiritual progression you can see is through your friends, your group of friends, and the people around you are the ones who reflect your values back at you. So those first people in your life are your family, and they teach you your values, but sometimes we don't agree with those values. And I would imagine a lot of neurodivergent people don't agree with their family values
Right.
because they don't see the world that way a lot of
Yeah.
the time. So you're going to kind of go on this lonery path to find your people. And I certainly did. It took me a really long time because I really also wanted to connect with all these creative people, but realized their intentions didn't really match mine. That's what's disappointing is when you start to find out like someone's actual intentions.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like, we're all musicians. Let's go somewhere and play music together.
Right.
Like, I don't think that's what everyone's thinking.
Right. Would you just rather people tell you exactly what they want from you right when they meet you?
1000%.
Yeah.
I love boundaries. If
Yeah.
someone can give me a boundary, I like that person.
Yeah.
If they can tell me what they like and don't like, respect. I
Yeah.
have no problem with that. But someone's trying to do all this weird stuff and like it makes me confused because like my initial response is to be trusting,
Yeah.
then it just takes up a ton of space in my head. And then that becomes very draining. And then it makes me gaslight myself and question myself. So I just thought that was more like in the realm of attachment theory, which it probably is. And I have like very disorganized attachment. But now that I'm understanding more, like, because this is very new for me, the ASD thing, but I'm researching it so much that, I'm starting to understand the connections in a very different way. It's like now all the light bulbs are turning on inside of my brain.
Got it. And do you feel like you're at the point where it's kind of settled down for you to where like you're processing it a little bit better, or is this autism thing still just a whole new world for you?
It's a whole new world.
Okay.
It's some days it's incredibly relieving, and other days you're like, wow, I have this label now. But I'm like, well, all these traits match this experience I have. It's just, I guess that this word is still a little stigmatized.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, why does this have to have a label at all?
Mm.
And I can get into my whole theory
Yeah.
on
And
that.
see, I've seen that, and I made a video the other day where I was talking about, and here's the thing with autism, things get taken out of context so easily online. I was talking
Mhm.
about the patient population I work with, kids who have autism and severe intellectual disabilities. They struggle to express themselves. So level 2, 3, mainly level 3, they can't state their basic needs. If they can point, that's a really good thing. I had patients say poop the other day. It was like a miracle. We were all happy. So I
Yeah.
was talking about managing aggression and using medications. And somebody was saying, well, autism is not an illness. We don't need it to be treated. And I understand that it's a different way of life. And sometimes it's, maybe semantics in the words that we use. But I've had to learn over time, if I am who I say I am, to have to be very careful with the words. And you say,
Definitely.
as someone living with ASD, normally in this community, I hear as an autistic woman. What are your thoughts on that? Because just hearing you talk, I'm just curious to know from your perspective what
So,
you
like, how
identify
I
with.
title myself?
Right? Are you an
Um,
autistic woman or a woman with autism?
I I'm non-binary really, but I just say I'm a woman because I've been treated like one my whole life, and I actually have no energy to tell people I'm non-binary. It's like another identity thing that for me I don't want to deal with. You got to deal with a lot of stuff. I've had many ego deaths, like I'm Armenian and I come from an ancestral line of people who died in a genocide, so I have to deal with ancestral trauma and like being completely detached from my Armenian family. So then you're finding your identity by that's a whole other thing where I'm like, I don't know how Armenian I am. I don't know how this I am. I don't know how that I am. I know that like I really wanted to be emptied of any kind of identity. So I just call myself an ASD person right now because like
It works.
I don't know, like
I love
it
it.
sounds silly to me still.
No,
Uh,
but it makes sense for me because it's really in California, like Armenian in California, people's minds will go to one thing automatically. If you say you're 37, you're Armenian California, okay, well, she probably like really big into her culture, has a couple of kids, and like how it is. the suburban mom living in Glendale type of thing, right? But if you are just who you are, is not in line with that, and it looks like you're comfortable being in your own identity.
Yeah, I
That's
think
what I'm
like
picking up.
always when I was since I was very little, I just thought I was like a person or a soul or a spirit. And
Uh,
so it was in some ways I don't feel like I was masking ever, but I was too in other ways, I guess. Now looking back at my childhood, I was like, "Oh yeah, I like copied people a lot." That thing where you're just like watching someone's behaviors and I'd be like, "Oh, I like what that person does. I'm going to copy them." Or like I saw this one move one soccer player team member did. I'm going to do that every single time
mhm.
someone does a corner kick into the game because I don't know how to play soccer.
Uh,
Like, but I just was like, "Oh, that's what you do? You take the ball?" And like I didn't really get how to I I don't know. Yeah, I was sometimes I was partially mute. I remember not speaking a lot. Um,
mm,
and and I was really into reading and at times being alone and like and then I studied music from a very young age. So I was just doing all these things in my own way and none of them really played around these gender dynamics too much in the world. So I just was like in my own little world, my fantasy world. I'm very like imaginative and dissociative. There's something called the Derridorian stare in our family. We all just like do this
okay.
dissociate, not like that, but we'll just be like all of a sudden staring off into the floor.
No,
Um,
I, I really like it because it's almost like think about it, like you have this childlike confidence. I'm not sure if that's what I'm looking for, but this childlike aura about you where nothing matters and whatever you say you really are that thing. Because as you grow up, people will put you in a box and you are in that box. You're just in that box. That's just what the world sees you as.
mhm.
There's a hierarchy. Oh, no, she does this. She's a musician. She's, but in your head, you're like, no, I'm a soul. I'm a person. And I hear that a lot in the neurodivergent community where people say, whether it's non-binary or not, say, oh, I'm a being. I'm an alien. I'm a creature. Whatever is the first term that comes to their mind, if that's what they actually believe, it's cool to just say it because your adult brain or the masking side of you will filter out things and you'll say, oh, i'm a I'm a woman, because people expect you to say you're a woman, and if you
Yeah,
say that you're a soul, they'll be like, well, what's going on here? So like you're removing that filter, but I think you're creating an environment around you where it's okay to remove that filter. There's not as much of a consequence.
yeah. I think the like my desire to be free, quote unquote, is so intense that I will do anything to live the life I want to live almost. That doesn't mean do anything bad. I'll like
Right.
sacrifice my needs, and there's been plenty of times where I haven't had a home. If I had, and like I've been in some relationships that could have been sustainable in some way for me, but it wasn't right. It wasn't the healthiest relationship for me to be in. So I was willing to sacrifice going back into instability, things like that, which I think are terrifying for women in the
Right.
world because we are really conditioned to, find a partner and get that stability and the pressures of maybe starting a family, which I feel no pressure to do. But I've just been like, there's so much to learn here in this world, and we all really need to be here to ascend on a spiritual level. Like, I don't want to repeat the same mistakes. I don't want to keep doing the same thing.
Right.
So this is what I'm really like hard about. And this is where I'm like pretty Buddhist and Taoist in the sense of um like what is real? What's actually happening?
Mhm.
So, like, do you know the work, Byron Katie? Katie at all, and her self inquiry process?
It sounds familiar. Byron Katie. I can't.
S-
Who's that?
she's kind of like
Yeah, okay, I probably don't know who that is.
self help guru woman, but she seemingly had some kind of, I don't know. I don't want to use the word some kind of psychosis, it sounds like, where she had this very enlightening moment in her life and became very detached from the attachments of the world. And she developed a system of self inquiry to then help a person get to the core of the truth of their situation. And she has this book called Loving What Is. So, it really helps us to take responsibility for everything in our life. When we get angry at another person for doing something to us, is it really their fault? It's like really sobering.
Or are
And
you
be like,
projecting, or
yeah, like
where are you accountable in the situation?
one of the inquiry things could be like, I'm mad at blah 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 because they keep not showing up when they say they're going to. Whatever, it's very vague. And then you would flip the question. I'm very angry with myself because I'm not showing up, you know, and you
Mhm.
flip the perspectives. And then it makes you realize, like, hey, why are you putting yourself in an unhealthy dynamic where you're setting yourself up for disappointment? Whose fault is this really? And
Right.
that's what's so sobering about it, is that you're constantly learning non-attachment, meaning like nobody is yours and you are nobody. And that
Uh,
makes you feel kind of alone. Yet that's why I find a spiritual path is very important, because you can't disempower yourself. Like, you got to, if you know you need to do something here on this planet, you have like something clear for you or a very strong desire to do it, like you kind of got to do it, and you got to learn a lot.
yeah.
Am I making any sense?
No, you make sense to me. I, I don't know how deep I am into your journey, but I'm a big believer in dreams. Like, I like this brand, this platform means everything to me. When I see somebody who tells me that they have a dream and they don't pursue it, it physically hurts me. And after,
Mhm.
like, I've stopped telling people, "Oh, did you just?" Because I would want it more for them. I'm like, you only get one chance in this life. Like, let's,
Yeah.
like, at least shoot the three and let it brick. But we have to take the shot. So I see where you're coming from. You're coming from I don't know if it's a different angle. We're getting to the same exact place. And is this more atypical when it's done by a woman? Because society, when they paint the picture of a lady, she's attached to certain, like, her kids, a husband, now a career. So to be detached from these things, I think it gives you a sense of power that the average human, takeaway gender, is not really walking around with. You're willing to walk away from anything. So if you're with something, you really want to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. I really understand the power of community and like good, like, friends and situations where you can be really inspired by other people. I'm very grateful that I found those people and I worked really hard to find them, because life is not about, to me, is not about going to work every day and retiring at 65.
Mhm.
Like, that's not what we were doing in ancient times, and we still have ancient brains. What were we doing? We were lighting a fire and playing some drums, probably getting high on something, having a great time.
Hey, I could tell you're from California. I love it because, like,
I
I don't
know.
know if it's a California, maybe it's neurodivergent thing, but it's a California thing a little bit, right? Where we care a
Oh, I
little.
have a Northern California accent. I'm from
Okay.
Sacramento. So I got like, I'll start busting out the hellas and things like that if I get in my like Cali mode.
No, but I didn't know that until I moved to California. Like, people are, the thought process is so expansive. Like, you're
Oh,
not
that's
afraid to
interesting.
do what, because I'm from the South originally. You really care about what, like if you were in the South, if you were in Athens, Georgia, and you were 37 and you were unmarried, you would be finished.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be done for it. They'd be like, "What's wrong with her? How is
Mhm.
she not? Where's her husband?" And in California, they're like, "Oh, okay, she got time."
It really is like the final frontier of the Wild West in a way. It really, like, even Los Angeles, it was such a like utopian, visionary city that really shouldn't exist. That's for another time.
LA.
So the dream was very expansive. I
Mhm.
mean, people, irrigated water from all over the state to build the San Fernando Valley where there was no agriculture. And
Oh,
then
I
they
get
delivered the white picket fence dream to all of these people in America to get them to move to Los Angeles and created a huge crisis with water in the whole state. This is my monotropism.
it.
I love a bunch of weird shit like this.
I had no idea. Wow. So that's how the valley came about.
Yeah, and then we started taking water from the Colorado River, and that
Oh,
river drains into Mexico, and now that's barely going into Mexico. We've just used up a ton of resources, but even like we used to have. I'm not from LA, and I haven't lived here like forever, but we used to have a whole trolley car system, so we had great public transportation. But then we polluted this whole city, and then in the 70s they had to really clean it up. So anyway, I guess I'm digressing a little bit, but it's like this is a place where I think people do really want to kind of imagine their wildest dreams coming to light. And
yeah.
that's what's really weird about LA too, and probably could weave that back into having ASD, where I feel very uncomfortable in social situations here because a lot of people are putting on a face. And there's well, who are you? What do you do? Like, how much merit do you have? How much of these things do you have? And I've watched people flip talking to me because, like, I won't tell them who I am or what I do right away, and then they might find out,
That's
and they're
Los
like,
Angeles
oh,
in a nutshell. I didn't know I was like famous until I came to LA. Like I thought everybody in LA had followers because I didn't know. And then I came and it's an actual city where people live and people there happen to have whatever. But it's a very social ladder climbing.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, I still love Los Angeles. Don't get me wrong. I love LA. I love LA what it's done for me, but you have to know how to navigate around a city like Los Angeles, especially being neurodivergent and not wanting to do small talk, and you have to figure out, okay, like how much like do I have to put up with to really get to where I want to get to, and like I want to do this, I want to do that, I don't care for this. It's and the groupthink there is crazy.
it's really, yeah, it is. It's almost like psychotic to me because, like, I love people from the South because I love etiquette, and I feel a
Right.
real genuine energy from a lot of people from the South because they just like are better at conversing in a certain way that
Yeah.
shows respect. And then on the eastern board, like New York and stuff, people are just like brutal in communication. And I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you. I don't have to guess. But
I,
California, I'm just like, you
I
know,
like that as well. And this conversation, this is it's a like you have a California vibe, but it's a very atypical California conversation. Like the only way that this could really happen in Los Angeles, if we're being honest, is if you're either high or on shrooms and you're really just sitting there and you're thinking like, like that's why, because
those
otherwise,
days are over. No.
what do you say?
Well, my dad's from Providence, so and he's Armenian. So I have like this whole other kind of reality of interaction and
Mm,
whatnot in my family background. And Armenians are very different culturally, and we're really like deep, pretty sincere people overall, I would say,
yeah, I've seen
because
that.
of having such a horrific history, partially.
Hmm.
There's a different kind of energy there. Also, my dad's not white, so his mentality is very different in America, being like, he's a darker Armenian, so he gets, profiled sometimes or whatever.
Gotcha.
I've seen him get profiled. It's very like disturbing because he can be like any Middle Eastern or Mexican or anything like that. So there's like some love, like that is a very different reality from like, am I making any sense? I have to like
It
doing
makes
that.
it makes sense. it's probably from having lived in LA, but I mean, obviously, like there was a time where I thought somebody like you, you're just white, and another person who looks like you, y'all just white, and then they say, no, my dad's not white, and I'm like, hold up, he, okay, it's like I know there's a nuance to it, you know, with
Yeah.
ethnicity and where you're from. So there's even discrimination within, and I don't know if it's like India where you got like the caste system, but
Mhm.
people are looked at differently within the same community. That's what I'm getting.
Yes. Well, it was really confusing too, because like, okay, if you don't have a white dad, uh, you're not getting like the info about America and like capitalism and competition in a certain way.
Did not know that.
And to me, I mean, I was when I was reading The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, there's was a study or a demographic in that book about how, men of color or in minority positions don't even want to vote because they don't think their voice is going to be heard. And this is
Right.
for a gender who had the opportunity to vote for much longer than women.
Women, that's correct.
And um yeah, it's funny, but I mean it really did paint a very different picture for me, like the values that my dad has, really really impacted me as being like a much more seemingly authentic person, aside from already having like ASD and being like
Right.
uncomfortably authentic. Because I not
You-
lie.
you're finding your people now, which is very hard. Number one to do in Los Angeles, like
It is. It's really
is
hard. I feel very disconnected here a lot. Yeah.
right. And yeah, I feel disconnected in LA. If not for this social media, like this community, I'd probably, yeah, I don't know. But I do feel disconnected. But at the same time, I also do feel like I belong because like I'm there, I have a dream, and also like I'm just doing my thing. Like my thing is my thing, and I put my flag down there in the valley. Okay, all right, I'm here. Boom, this is my,
Yeah.
which a lot of people in LA do. Like they have their thing, they put their flag down. Boom, this is my thing. But it is hard to find your people. But there's certain things that you'll see that will kind of tip you off. And I don't know if it's an autistic thing or a neurodivergent thing, but it'll tip you off into who could be your person or your people. Like you mentioned, the boundaries, and people don't understand about boundaries. Somebody who is really good at setting boundaries, they're probably that way because at one point they couldn't set a single boundary, and they got to a point where they're like, all right, you know what? No, I cannot live this way anymore. I need this. I need that. So when you see a boundary and somebody stick to it, it is almost a sign that that person is going to remain true to themselves when push comes to
Yes.
shove, as opposed to somebody who everything. And in LA, it might be an LA thing, but in LA, somebody who anything flies with them, it's kind of a red flag.
Yeah. I mean, it's also just this whole like, to take it back to like the entertainment world, people think they have to be fake, and they do because it's just a huge game, and that's why I can't like get into like it's hard for me to like. I was like, it would be kind of cool to be an actor, but like, would I want to deal with Hollywood? Like, I don't think I could, because like you don't know what you're gonna say that someone else is gonna say to somebody else, and then they're gonna like flag you and like get you off this thing or whatever project. Like that stuff happens because like you have to be really charismatic.
Trust me, I know, and I go to acting classes and I hear how things are, and you have to smile. And Hollywood is a very special place. Let's just say that. But I mean, I put Hollywood mental health expert in my name, so I wanted to come to this environment, which can be very poisonous at times. But I think if there was ever a time to be an actor, uh, and see, that's nothing about me. I see woman, and I go to actress. And then in LA, I learned that, oh, women refer themselves as an actor. I'm like, oh, is that LA thing?
Yeah.
But either way, there's no better time than now to pursue what you want, because there's people who think the way you think and they're open about it. Because
Mhm.
before it was like, oh, I think this way, I'm maybe call it autism or whatever. But like you were just that. and nobody else spoke about, because the status quo is what people stuck to. So now you can actually speak up about how you feel. But at the same time, the gatekeepers are still the gatekeepers in Hollywood, and old money is stronger than new money. There's different things that just are might impede you from getting to your goal. But I think that if there was ever a time that you could pull off what you'd want to pull off, it would be now. It's just a matter of finding your people.
Definitely. And I think like you're in that city for a crucial reason. You're probably starting to fill a void that maybe people didn't even know they
Right.
needed. And when you're showing neurodivergent people how to empower themselves, see why I feel like a lot of neurodivergent people become marginalized or like othered and everyone's weirded out by them is because we can be quite logical and we can be very innovative in our thinking and create systems that are actually beneficial to all, but that is the antithesis of capitalism. So
Right.
you just end up like, that's why we're community based. That's why we want to find our people, because we don't need, I feel like most of us aren't like out there trying to get like super ahead. Like I'm fine if my basic needs are met and I have like a little bit more if I want to go like on a vacation sometimes. But like I'm not trying, like what the most important thing to me is building community and building innovation where, don't, just like you say, like keep going to people. It's exactly that. Like our talents are immense. It's just we don't yet have these industries intact or like these systems intact for people that think the way we do.
Right.
We're gonna have to make it ourselves.
Right.
It's gonna be like Uber, where they didn't know that like there was this whole missing
Mm.
kind of space where it's like, oh, these people can just like drive their car and get paid for it, and we're gonna make a bunch of money from these people and treat them terribly, which is the capitalist way of filling a need that no one knew about. But
It makes sense. And for me, I'm split because I do recognize that this me and like I don't know if it's political. I don't get into politics, but I do believe that there's something to capitalism that we need. Do we need all of it? Probably no. Like we don't need people to be starving and hungry. And at some point, humanity should kick in. But there's something that we need there, or just because it's there, when we correct things or as we make strides, whatever is the remnant of that system, if we can take that and bring it to something, you know what I'm saying? Like take what works, and I mean it works, but take what works and take something new. But somebody has to be, for lack of a better term, crazy. I hate using the word crazy, but different enough or crazy to create a new system and bring it to the middle. And that's the thing I appreciate about the neurodivergent community, because it's it's a big fu. I don't cuss off, but it's a big fu to the way things are done. Anytime somebody can come in and say, "I'm doing things this way," and people say, "Oh, but it's always been done this way." Okay,
mhm.
that's just an attractive thing. You put your flag down and say, okay, I'm going to do it this way. And I can really respect that. And I think that's where the risk taking comes from. Neurodivergent individuals. Oh, nah, I'll go on a limb. I'll try this. I'll
Yeah,
try. Can
I
you
mean,
identify with that part? The risk taking?
say that again. Sorry.
Can you identify with the risk taking part?
Do I identify with that?
Right.
I'm starting to get there because it's really scary, to take those risks. Like I've been thinking a lot lately about the Black Panther Party and like their immense innovation in creating.
They meant the movie. I was like,
No,
two. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
uh, just that the Black Panthers, they were so effective that they got taken out. They took massive risks and they had to get to the point of, being armed because it was so powerful, the movement that they were creating. They were
Mm,
building school lunch programs. They were creating like communities that could thrive. They were doing everything in their power to serve their underserved, marginalized community, and the FBI took them out. That's scary,
it is.
like because community is extremely powerful, and capitalism, to me, creates a type of separateness and the illusion of the ego to keep you separate. So whilst I do agree with you that there are many aspects of capitalism, like people should feel like free to do what they dream, there's also like greed and manipulation that comes
Right.
along with that because you get that power hunger, and then you forget what it feels like to be fulfilled when you're around your people, your group of
Yeah.
people who uplift you and support you and show you that you can do those things, and you're serving a huge community in doing that. You might not always be around those people, but they're incredibly grateful to you, and I'm one of them because like now that I understand the ASD thing more, I'm like, "Oh my god, I now realize how much I've been gaslighting myself for so long and thinking there's something I'm super weird and there's something wrong
Mm.
with me when I just like didn't know that there are a lot of people that have these experiences too."
Yeah, and you're a big hit not only here but also my people on TikTok. Somebody saying we need her links, please. I'll put that at the end, but I want to say I like the way you think. I appreciate the way you think because
Thank you.
you're welcome. It's atypical. It's not the status quo, but there's no being ashamed in it. You know what I'm saying? That was probably
Yeah.
in the formative stages of this journey that you've been on, but like you think what you think, and also I like when people, now I don't get this a lot in LA, and I've told this story about how I was struggling with my sobriety last year because nobody would tell me the truth because they wanted to come to my house and they wanted to party, so nobody would tell me the truth, and it's very frustrating when people can't disagree with you, like the small
Mhm.
things. Like if you believe in something, you'll say, "Oh no, like no, yeah, capitalism," but like no, this. You can't take that for granted in a place like where we live, where it's like, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." No, like maybe you think differently, and that's okay
Mhm.
because people associate different with being bad, which is one of the major strengths of this community. Because you're different. You've been different your whole life. You just now put that label autism on it because you got a diagnosis, but you've known that you do things a little bit different. Maybe you like the smell of gasoline, or this sound throws you off, or like you have some quirks to you or idiosyncrasies, and as you embrace those things, it's like, okay, this is who I am, and okay, and there's a lot of power in saying this is who I am, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. That also goes back, I think, to like spirituality in the sense of like there are universal truths. There are there are things about life that are just true.
Hmm.
And I think when you go and you try and discover what those universal truths are, they're they're very hard to refute. That's why James Baldwin was such an amazing debater and writer and interviewee, because like you could bring up any topic with James Baldwin, and he knew how to. He just could like nip it in the bud and clarify it and just like shut down, all these like racist white dudes trying to debate with him on race or whatever it might have been, the topic, and he just understood these truths. There are some things that all people know to be true, but maybe they just don't want to believe it because it diminishes their false sense of self, you
Oh,
know?
what's the first thing that comes to your mind? No filter.
With what?
A universal truth that we don't want to admit. I put you on the
That
spot.
we're not separate from each other. Humans are not separate from each other.
I
We are
want to say
not
I agree, in,
individual.
in what sense?
We're all connected.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the idea that there's an ego is the illusion of separateness, that we don't need other people. And that's where we get really lost. It's everything to us. Relationships are everything to us.
Hmm.
Communities are actually everything to us. Why can we see, in LA, you might go see like a Mexican family having a picnic in the park, and like these folks don't have much money, they don't get paid well in California, and they're having a great time. with their families and their extended families. And
Hmm.
they just the ethos of them is completely different because they have to have community and rely on each other in a way that people like either like higher income people or people with privilege don't have to interact in the world.
Mm.
So what would happen if like all these if everyone understood community or like family in a way where it kind of tempered the greed that you can start to develop when you get the illusion of the ego and this desire to go get. There's different ways to go get things.
Right.
You know, like
So how much is too much? How much is too much then?
too much is like, well, man, I mean, money is a really this is also I think when the Black Panthers started getting more uh and like Martin Luther King Jr. started getting more targeted is when they started incorporating the poor. So anyone in the poor bracket of any color.
Hmm.
When they started to create that solidarity with the poor class is when that stuff started to get broken up because there's nothing more powerful than uniting people. Like
Hmm.
forcing people to be racist against each other is this whole ploy to like stop the poor and the working class people to unite and innovate and create better lives for themselves. And this started so long ago in like history when there were white indentured servants and there were black enslaved people.
Hmm.
And they all came over from like Europe or Africa. And there was a period of time where this is all in Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States, but only until
It sounds better coming from you than reading the book.
well, they started to, the white indentured servants and the black enslaved people started to come together. And this is when the government started giving handouts to the white indentured people so that they had just a little bit more
Hmm.
than the black enslaved people. And that created a division and created a type of racism that started happening between these poorer groups of people.
Mm.
And there's so much more. Like if you ever read like the indigenous people's history of the United States and the whole history of like American Indians and how they got pitted against each other, their own tribes by, white colonialists, whatever. I'm getting into all this stuff,
I'm
but
about to
like,
start reading books soon. I've been saying I want to get back into books.
but this is why I believe in community because a lot of this stuff and like identity even is in some ways taking us away from the fact that we all need each other and we can all learn from each other. And I mean, that's like a world I would want to see, but we're really under this conditioning of capitalism that keeps us separate from each other.
I will agree with that. And as much as I like competition or I'm just driven by there is this nature of it pulls us away. If people have to work 3, 4, 5 jobs to survive, you don't have
Yeah.
time to go spend with loved ones and friends, and then relationships. And I believe we see it in the dating market nowadays. Not that everybody is so evil, but people are just trying to survive. So they're gonna put their needs first before anybody else's.
And
So
that's why
yeah.
it's like a crucial time to go back to community and like what strive for is a service. What's higher than serving other people? That's the highest thing you can do.
Hmm.
That's the most satisfying spiritually thing you can do is serve others.
I agree.
And so like your intentions are where you're going and like becoming more known by default in a way because you're just living in your truth and you really want something good for other people. Does that equate to some like fucking sorry, Harvey Weinstein, or somebody who wants to like control the whole film industry and manipulate women and do all these horrible things to people so he can stay on top? You can get to beautiful places by being a good person, serving
Right.
other people.
Right. that is one thing people don't know, but I wholeheartedly believe in that. Now you're still gonna put some boundaries because just being a good person doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries, but being an
Oh, yeah.
authentic person who is kind, who wants to help people.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want and still be because people feel like you have to be an asshole to it makes it easier if you're an asshole because you get played less, but you can be a nice person and still accomplish
Yeah.
everything.
I think I don't know, like these things have never made sense to me. Like these power structures. That I'm just like every time I question the power structure, I'm like, I don't get it. If it doesn't make sense to me, then I can't really agree with it. And go
No, I
ahead.
was gonna say that's not in the DSM-5 criteria for autism, but within the autism community, there's this big desire for justice and like fighting for what's right.
Yeah. And that probably goes back to the black and white thinking and like high moralistic standards. It's also, I think, what makes people think we're arrogant because we have very like opinionated views at times. And there's things that we feel really strongly about and very confident about.
I can see that.
And that can be misinterpreted as arrogance because like we will argue for it. We'll
Right.
really argue for it. And we might not be open to other viewpoints on it because we've really developed this theory and this philosophy around it. And there's tons of stuff where I'm just like, I'm right. And I don't know if I'm right, actually.
Uh,
But I've thought about it so much that it's right to me.
But then it does, as long as it's not hurting anybody, there's nothing wrong with it being right. It's right in your reality. It's right as long as it's not hurting anybody else or hurting some community. But then I doubt that it would if you are who you say you are and you care deeply for others. So more than likely, it's right.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in position, had to be in positions of leadership, like leading my own band, and that's a really good example of like what you can do when you're the one in control. Like how we communicate, how we respect each other. All these things you have to really take into consideration, like learning how to communicate in a respectful way, which can kind of be hard for someone with ASD because we're just so dry or straight sometimes. Like I've read books on how to communicate. So one, when I talk about what I'm feeling, I use it from my perspective. I try not to put it on somebody else, but I also try to speak to everyone respectfully because that's what I want in return and that's what creates healthy relationships. Yet you go to work and you see a tyrannical boss just willy-nilly doing whatever they want, or maybe they're changing the schedule, maybe they're favoring one person over another person. And for me, I'd be like, you're not emphasizing everybody's strengths
Mhm.
so that we can all be here together and like make this huge part of our week worth living for.
Right.
I could talk for a long time, by the way, so you're gonna have to stop me.
Oh no! I will stop you, but I like picking your brain for now. But I will say because there are times when you want a democratic boss who gets everybody in, and and the way people feel is important. People don't realize that the way you feel is important. But
Morale. Yeah.
then, then again, there are times when somebody had, in my opinion, somebody has to just grab hold of the reins and say, no, we're doing it like this. This is how we're doing it. And it might be, you might not like it, but I'm sorry. This is how we're doing this specific thing. No ifs, ands, or buts. Nobody's questioning it. But at the same time, if you can come back around and explain, because normally it's a high pressure situation where it's like, all right, we need to get this done. But you should come back around if you are able to and say, hey, this, if you can explain things to somebody, especially people who are searching for a why, I think they can respect that. But normally, people who are domineering, they're like, this is how we do things. They never really take their foot off the gas. you
Yeah.
know, they're just that one speed all the time, not
Yeah.
worrying about how people feel. And the way people feel is important. And this generation is not going to sit back and work a job that they don't want to work, or you work it until you don't have to work it. Though it's a bit more selfish, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's being selfish to be selfless. You have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else.
Mhm.
So
You have
does
to really be strong in who you are to be like a good leader too. Because
right.
you can't like, I mean, a lot of leaders are obviously very hypocritical and they have the power behind them or the ability to bend the truth, but like a person like me, that's not the way that I want to live or who I am. So, if I'm like leading a band, for example, first I have to know that they trust me and that they support my creative vision. Then we're working on making sure, like, I make sure everyone feels comfortable and they know the music
Mhm.
and they have what they need to do to set them up for success. And then there is going to come a point where I call the shots and I'm like, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. But they trust me because I've been able to delegate responsibilities and communicate and explain things in a way where it's very clear for them, and that so they don't have to be like, well, are they doing it for this reason or not? Like,
Right.
I talk about money immediately with my bands. I'm like, this is how much money I have for this
Yeah,
show. This is how much I can
I
give
like
you.
that.
Sometimes I have to take more because I have to do stuff with that money, and I'll tell you if that's the case. And it's really I think the best work environments are the ones where a boss knows how to boost morale, see people's strengths, and earn people's trust, and then they will follow
Yeah. So
respectfully.
you're saying the autistic way of doing things is the right way.
Oh yeah.
I like
Like,
that. I like that you double down on that, and I like that way because it's less to read through. Me personally, because I'm the type of person, like, I played football before. I could have gone to the military. I'm not military, but I don't mind things being cut and dry if I can understand what it is. Because I'd
100.
rather be cut and dry than have to go and read. Like, I'll leave situations where it's like, oh, I can't tell what's going on here. If it's a question mark, it's a hell no for me. I'm out. Is this too much mental work? I'm not going to do that. Depending on
Yeah.
what it is, obviously. But if I know what it is, like, a boss should talk about money up front. It shouldn't be like one of these LinkedIn job postings where it's like, are you interested in the job? Well, how much you gonna pay? Like, how are you going to conceal the financial details of a job offer? People aren't want to
Mhm.
work for you for fun, like, you know, but it's kind of status quo to be not direct. So I think, and
Yeah.
honestly, it all relationships, the more direct you can be, is just the fact that you can't be direct in a lot. You'd be surprised how many DMs I get from people who are married and they can't tell the person that they're married to certain things because we built this culture of, mm, like, my feelings, like, I respect feelings, but the more direct you are, it unfortunately, the more direct you are, like, if you're a direct person, you may not have a relationship that's like 30, 40 years. Because sometimes it's those long toxic relationships that stand the test of time where whatever has happened, like, we're never leaving each other. But I do think that the quality of your relationships and your friendships will be higher
Yeah.
potentially because you just know what, like, you don't have to sit there and figure out. And also for me, I feel like it's self-respecting to put myself in positions to where I know, and I also reciprocate. I let people know. If I don't know, I'll say, hey, I don't actually know. But when I know, I say, hey, I know.
Mhm.
Because then you're making the decision for the other person if you're not being fully transparent. But we live in a world where we're not fully, and even having this conversation is like, I'm like, wow, like, she's direct. So then in my head, I'm like, oh wow, I could ask her a question. I might actually get the truth.
And I'll probably have the answer because I'm crazy.
Right. Even if I
Like,
don't get the truth, I'll probably get the truth. Or just the fact that I think I'll get the truth is liberating because now I don't have to, like,
I'm not, yeah. I think most people live like with the fear of abandonment.
yeah,
But like, I decided somewhere along the line, I was like, well, if I'm gonna keep being in, to take it back to relationships, for example, are you talking about that marriage? or people coming to you and not feeling like they can be honest in their marriages. And that's why a lot fail. 50% of marriages fail in the United States. It's like that fear of abandonment overrides your truth. And then how do you get to know yourself when you are abandoning your needs or your voice? And like, you know, I did that in one relationship, and then the next one I did, I was like really hard about being direct, and that one lasted way less time.
You were.
But like, but I was like, at least I was honest with myself and that person, and I know that person is not angry with me because I didn't lie to them. I didn't lie to myself.
True. And when the smoke clears, they can respect you because you didn't lie. As hurt as they are, they will come back and say, you know what? At least she respected me enough to tell me the truth. So it'll sting, but at least you'll get the truth.
Yeah.
You know, but there is some thought to maybe there is a way that you say things, tact. There's definitely a way that you say things.
And I'm not very good at that all the time. Because sometimes you're so triggered in relationships I mean, everyone gets triggered in relationships, but like, because I've lived with being so hypersensitive my whole life that there's subconscious triggers that like completely activate my nervous system in relationships. And then sometimes I find myself like becoming kind of frantic or whatever because I just go into a state of overwhelm, and then I'll be like, you know, sometimes I'll just become like really direct and just be like, stop. And I don't have the time to set up the kind way of talking about it and being soft and loving and all that stuff. Cause I'm just like, this thing is making me feel this. And can be really harsh for someone else. But if someone does that to me, which I'm like, okay, I don't know. I just really I want to know if I'm triggering somebody, and I want them to tell me.
And likewise, when you trigger somebody, you want them to tell you that. Or hold on, I'm trying to flip that around. You want to know when you're triggering somebody. So do you want to know when, or do you want people to let you know when they're triggered?
By me? Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Circles? Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying like,
I was figuring circles.
Like I can handle really direct honesty. And like if someone was to be like, hey, I feel really triggered by what you're saying right now, then I would take a minute and like think about what I'm saying, you know, and acknowledge it and just have the conversation. But yeah.
Does being direct, this is a good question. Does being direct work better in heteronormative relationships, or if you have alternate relationships, which is anything non-heteronormative? Does it work better in one or the other? Because I have a theory, but I don't know what you say.
I think I don't know if one of my exes was neurodivergent or not. And then the other one claimed to not have been. It's not neurodivergent. But so you were saying about directness. I think, you know, if people are living more in their attachment theory styles, like for example, like someone's really anxious attached, they need a lot of like reaffirmation of their being there is okay, like, and they're wanted and they're fine, and this kind of reassurance that sometimes for me can become very exhausting because I'm like, I told you the thing, I told you the truth, I love you, and that's why we're here together. Do I need to tell you again? And so yeah, that's kind of triggering for someone like me when I'm direct in what I guess might be like a hetero or like a neurotypical neurodiverse relationship, where it's like maybe if they have an attachment issue and you're direct, they might not believe what you're saying, and that might trigger you because they're not validating your reality. So you're not really you're not speaking the same language.
Got it. So
trying.
No. That part, I don't know if it answers the question, but that makes sense. It's another thing that does make sense. But
I
then
think,
to answer the question, so does the directness does it help, or because I'm not sure what type of relationships you have, but overall, does it help or hurt?
um,
Double-edged sword.
I don't know. I think it really just depends on the relationship, but then that really gets into like hetero gender dynamics and expectations. Like I am in usually like in my long-term relationships it's with men. So it's a hetero usually monogamous relationship. And that's I don't know. I think there's like underlying expectations of how a woman's supposed to talk to a man, for example.
That's exactly what
So
I was trying to get to.
women
That,
are expected to be softer, more accommodating, more receptive, flexible, sweet, and I'm not. I'm not like mean either, though.
Mhm.
I'm just like autistic. And I do want to clarify one thing. I am not officially diagnosed. I'm self-diagnosed.
Uh-huh.
And I have a friend who is a psychiatrist
Mhm.
who validated
Funny.
my self-diagnosis, but she's not in my network. So I'm still in the process of like trying to get an official one. And that's what, you know, this is another thing where it's like maybe it feels weird sometimes to identify myself this way because I haven't had some person who went to college and got a piece of paper tell me what I am, you know?
I'm not diagnosing you. It seems very much in line with the autistic traits that somebody who has autism spectrum disorder would have. But actually, before we get back to relationships, can you elaborate a little bit about that? Because a lot of people who are watching, whether it's TikTok or here, are sub-diagnosed. So just elaborate more on that point again. You said a friend who's a psychiatrist kind of validated your diagnosis. I'm curious
Yeah,
about.
I went to her, but I can't like work with her officially because she's in a different network of insurance than I'm
Mhm.
capable of accessing. So she was just like, if you were my patient, I would diagnose you based on your research and
Right.
the what qualifies you in the DSM. And then the more I researched it, the more I was like, well,
Interesting.
everything makes sense now. I'm super like my special interests. The list is like it's like the credits after a film, like
Yeah.
ever since childhood. And I just was like, "Oh, I just like want to learn everything." And then I was like, I'm like addicted to learning.
Hmm.
Like my downtime is like studying on YouTube.
But once again, that community, once you have that community around you, it, and that's why I like the internet, because for some people, they may never have had that community ever in their life. And sometimes I feel like people hop into relationships when they really want friendship around them. Like you want like-minded people around you, but you can't really find it. So when somebody with any bit of romantic interest has like similar interests, or I'm just gonna dive deep into this and try and pull that like affirmation, that togetherness, that community from this one person, which is probably gonna end up being codependent, but you haven't seen your special interest be appreciated like that ever before.
Hmm.
Whereas there's a whole group of people out there on the internet who like the same things, and then once you find them, then you're really tripping. You're like, wow, like somebody knows, like they watched the 14th episode or like it gets super deep.
You can quote all of Tommy Boy with Chris Farley and David Spade from front to back. Like,
Good movie. I never finished watching it, but that's a good movie.
but like, um, oh yeah, well, maybe I'm losing what I was gonna say now about, yeah, I do feel really grateful knowing that there's other people. That was one of the things. You have those shorts, and some of the people are talking about ASD and like the frustrations of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially the women or the femme, looking people, the stuff they're saying is so on point that it's like brings me to tears. And I don't cry that much.
Wow, wow,
So for me, I'm like, oh my God,
wow.
somebody so like succinctly explained this experience that I just was like, I can't talk about this because I don't know. You do internalize a lot. Like, people with OCD probably don't always know they have OCD till way later too, because it's so shameful to have intrusive thoughts.
Wow.
So how do you safely express these very nuanced experiences without feeling criticized, especially if you're hypersensory, you're then hypersensitive, you are then difficult, and you feel like you're a burden. So why are you going to start talking about your feelings the older you get, when
Right.
you've been signaled from childhood
To not do
that
it.
you're complaining, or that you're difficult, whatever it is, when you're just like, well, actually, I need to be like wrapped up tightly in a blanket and like put in a room with all the lights turned off for a while, and then I'll feel better.
Right. But that's so key, because that could really be the difference between having a full blown sensory overload fight. Sometimes you get physical, some happens, or getting a weighted blanket, cutting down the lights, putting on some type of soothing sensory sound, and just taking a nap. You could forget about it. You could really just forget about it.
That's why I like really value living alone and having alone time. Like sometimes there's nights where I'm like, oh, it's getting dark. Like now I'm gonna like turn on a couple low lights and like give myself a tarot reading and then write in my journal and like do my little ritual thing. And it makes me feel so calm, even if like, it doesn't even matter what the tarot reading says. It's like these little rituals of sorts where you know how it makes you feel, or it makes you feel like you're in a magic environment for a second, or whatever it is, where um you develop, maybe a lot of people with ASD can relate to this, you develop I think they talk about this too, like your own little rituals or things that you do for self-soothing that you don't really want to share with anybody else, because it's probably kind of like this direct, result of having felt so overbearing for other people. So you
Mhm.
find ways to auto regulate. So
Wow.
this is what's actually very hard about a woman, because the mixed signaling, and I'm disorganized attached. So it's like, I need co-regulation and I need auto regulation, where like avoidant people usually resort to auto,
Mhm.
and anxious people are going towards co. And I have to do both. And I don't know when sometimes I need to, which one, because I like can heavily isolate. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm about to have a panic attack. I better call my sister, who's a somatic therapist, thank God. So she can
Oh,
like, help me. But yeah, I mean, it's so much around the regulation, I think, of the nervous system, because these environments are so overstimulating
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And then
No, I cut you off. Go ahead.
I was just going to add one thing about being a musician, and this is why the masking stuff gets really difficult, because you're in all of these environments constantly. They're always changing, and you're having to, be on airplanes, be on buses, be on trains, be in airports, be in these public places constantly. Fluorescent lighting, like the worst thing. And then New York in the summer smells like trash, like everywhere, and it's just like constantly. And I have learned in some ways to like mask by, whatever my little hacks are. But like I sleep with earplugs in every night. Doesn't matter if it's dead quiet outside. I have to have them in.
Are you gonna have them in tonight?
Oh yeah,
So what's the rationale? What did the earplugs do for you?
because I had to do it on tour, it became a habit. So like
Mm.
I don't want to hear my, like, if one of my bandmates wants to stay up later, I have to like just deal with it. And also I have like talked in my sleep in the past, and sometimes I tell people to shut up in a really rude way while I'm asleep, and then I offend them. I have gotten like abandoned by friends for doing that in high school. So it's kind of
When you said high school, I was like, okay, but it could happen as an adult. It could.
yeah, yeah. And I don't, so I'm very clear about like where my emotional state, all these things on tour, which, you know, I feel like I have to be an over explainer so people understand that like when I go quiet, it's not because I'm trying to be a jerk.
Right.
It's because I'm overstimulated actually. And when you have a job again where you're like constantly interacting with people and traveling and being like hit with your senses are being hit constantly, that's why I've just like really trained myself to deal with it. And that's probably part of why when I come home I burn out so hard because I'm just like, ooh, holding the little sphere of protection for so long.
You have really good self-awareness. You like it is with all of us. You could probably practice being nicer to yourself because like you know exactly like if you're tripping, you know why you're tripping.
Absolutely. I wish
Almost.
that everyone would tell me like where they're at when we're hanging out. If somebody like was like, you know, I'm having fun, but like I think I gotta like head out pretty soon. I'd be like, cool, go. Do not overextend yourself. I'm not gonna guilt trip you, you
Yeah.
know. I
And
want you to be comfortable.
I can relate to that, but the hard part is expecting that from other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then it might make you question the relationship because you have sometimes I feel like I have so much patience and a huge well of patience and consideration for other people. And if they can't reciprocate that on my level, it might make me question if we actually have a real relationship or not. So these like high expectations of myself, which are also just like regular expectations.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, then you kind of see how like I don't
That
know.
could be a neurodivergent thing. Are you talking about where, let's say, me, you are friends and we always vibe, but for one particular day, you're just talking and talking. I don't know what you're talking about. You're just talking, and so I'm like, are we even like friends? She's just talking. Is that what you mean?
I think it's like if I had to leave like a social situation and I was with a friend that I went there with and they got bombed at me for having to leave early. Like
Gotcha.
if the roles were switched, I'd be like, go ahead. But most of my friends do
Yeah, yeah,
understand this now.
yeah.
And then if I say like, hey, I'm like in burnout right now, or I'm having these things, like I can't hang as long. I give so much information to people, which they don't always. That's not a lot of people's style, but like
Do you give the information to people who are like you, or you're just trained to give it out to people?
I just started doing it with everyone because I felt so misunderstood.
Do you still have a desire to be understood?
I definitely have a desire to be understood. I think everyone should have a desire to be understood, and everyone should be trying to understand each other. Given that, like tolerance is a very important, you know, quality to develop. I feel like I have a lot of tolerance for lots of different personality types,
But
probably because I felt so misunderstood that I like take my time to try and observe them and see like, you know, what are all your little isms so that I can like support you in
right.
your weakness.
But you don't think that burns you out? Not saying you shouldn't do that, but
Oh, it does.
yeah, trying to hold space for everybody. Uh, the cool thing is when you, I would say, when as you find your people and you hold space for them, it's really cool to find people and then like you're already holding space for them because then like it fits. It's just that thinking practically about the world that we live in and people who are going to come and just drain, take, and you're like, I'm burnt out. And then
Mhm,
you have to replenish and you come back out to the world like, all right, I got 30%. I'm holding space for somebody out here. Hopefully they don't drain me out because by
mhm,
the time I get to 15, 10, I got to go back inside,
mhm.
you know? But,
Yeah.
and also about the point about being understood and this conversation is taking so many different turns, but I used to think that I used to have a deep desire to be understood. And it was much more liberating once I kind of gave it up. I still have a desire to be understood. But once I kind of realized that to try and understand me when I probably won't understand myself at that full level, it might be too much to ask of somebody, or it could be something that, well, not that it's too much to ask, but it might not be something worth zoning in and focusing on. Sense. Because yeah, people can understand me, but then you might not, because I'm a complex person and we all are.
Yeah, I would say when I'm saying I want to be understood, it's probably more in social situations and interactions than it
Oh,
is for them to understand what kind of person I am. It's
got
more
it.
like this is the mood I'm in, or this is like
That makes sense. That makes
that kind
sense.
of stuff. Yeah, because when you're working with other people,
Mhm.
they need to be clued in. Everyone needs to be clued
Yeah.
in. I would love if everyone's like telling me their energy level, what they're capable of or not capable of in that day, because I want to be able to do that too.
But it,
And I do it, or I do say it, I guess.
but honestly, you know what would make, like, take tonight for example. I'm trying to find this Airbnb. I'm frustrated, and like when I get, I don't know about other people, but when I get so frustrated or upset, I just get calm because I know that the
Mhm.
alternative is me like wilding out. I'm like, I probably shouldn't wild out. It's been so long since I've done it because it's not acceptable. So I get so angry, I just get calm. So I
Did
got
you
calm.
say you're ADHD?
Yeah, ADHD.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I have a very close ADHD person in my life, and I have educated the heck out of myself on ADHD because, yeah, I mean, the very different way of operating where I'm like, I really want to understand so I don't, get bugged if if they all, they switch and they're all of a sudden over here, or this thing's happening now, or am I making sense? Kind of.
No, but that's a very thoughtful thing to do. And that right there, if that's within the context of a relationship, I can't speak for everybody who has ADHD, but that would mean more than talking talking softly, try not to hurt my feelings. Because
Mm,
that's consideration. Consideration is a super high form of love. People,
yeah.
some people never get there, and they're married for years. I love you, but they don't consider how their actions affect the person right next to them. So
Hmm.
uh, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. You're doing a lot of mental work, which is good. You could burn yourself out, but it is good because it's like, oh wow, that person would think that of me. That's
Yeah.
pretty.
I'm trying to think of how to like explain it a little bit better with like, because I know sometimes with like ADHD, people can, doing something like the finding the Airbnb and maybe like trying to piece together certain information sometimes doesn't like go the way you want it to go. And I don't know if I'm giving a great example here.
No, you're giving a good ass example because I was so frustrated, and this is where I'd cuss, but I know kids watch, so I try and keep the cussing in the minimum. But I was so frustrated trying to find this B&B that I was like, all right, somebody needs to feel this pain. But I'm like, oh, it can't be Angel. I'm like, I haven't even met the person. And I didn't even like my assistant did the work. So I'm like, oh, Angel could be a boy or a girl. I've had a patient who his name was Angel and it was a guy. So I was like, I told John, I'm like, all right, John, just tell him, can we do tomorrow? Can we do tomorrow? But I was getting so frustrated because I couldn't find this damn Airbnb. And then I'm getting pissed off because it's taking longer. And I'm like, I got things to do. I got things. I'm
Hmm.
just getting more and more pissed as time goes on. And then I realized I'm like, whoever this angel dude is, this person doesn't deserve this. And then my assistant, what he did, he sent your Instagram. And because it was so late that I was gonna come on the live stream, that he was like, oh, Angel's been waiting for so long. Would you want to go to the Instagram and like apologize yourself? My first thought was like, hell no, I want to. No, I'm like, and so what I actually TikTok, I gotta look at this message. I actually messaged my assistant and I said, uh, well, he said, I said, I'm lost checking into this Airbnb. Asking if we can reschedule until tomorrow. I'm still checking in. And John goes, okay, maybe you can also DM him personally on IG as he's been waiting since 7 o'clock PST. I said, is he okay to wait more? John says, wait, I'll ask. 12 minutes later, I go, I'm not in a good mood. I've been driving around an hour looking for parking at this hotel. Like I was so pissed off that I was like, I'm frustrated. So I was like, all right, I got on the laptop and I emailed you. I said, all right, I know I'm pissed off. I know my energy, and I didn't want to do the live stream because I'm like, my energy is like, I'm pissed off. So, but then I know that time, because I know how it is when people waste my time. I'm like, hold up, I didn't waste the Angel's time. So I emailed, I said, I think I apologized twice in there. And now because I used to over apologize as a kid. So I keep track of when I apologize more than once. But I left two of the I'm sorry's in there because I'm like, it's your time. I'm like, hey, Angel, boom, boom. I'm sorry. Like, whatever, tomorrow or today, like whatever works for you, it's all good. I'll be on the live stream because that's just how you have to, because like right is right and wrong is wrong. So
well,
I was
it's better to hear from you. I would say that, and like hear even if it was just like just directly from you, because sometimes having like someone in the middle can create like
yeah
a type of confusion. But then I was like, I think he said he has ADHD. And like in my experience with ADHD people, sometimes like the plan goes awry and like they're working on it, but then they might get like state of overwhelm and then they're like, I gotta go to the store and get like a Coca-Cola right now and like go stand here for a second and like stare and then I'll know like the next thing to do or whatever it might be. And so I was like, I'm gonna go eat and then maybe we'll talk. And then I was like, oh well, this ended up being probably better than it ended this way.
No, it did end up being better. And that brings me back around to my point where I was like, I was so pissed off that I said, because I'm able to separate. I'm like, all right, I can be pissed off, but this person doesn't know anything. And they've been waiting. So, because John did the right thing, my assistant did the right thing. He said, hey, you can message your Instagram because that's how I do things normally. But then I was like, no, I'm not in a good mood. My energy's gonna be off. My energy's gonna be off. So I email, but I'm like, hold up, no, it has to come from me. Because I was gonna email off of my phone. I said, no, it needs to come from me. Let me just do the right thing. And I emailed. And then when we got on the stream, I was like, yo, Angel's dope as hell. This is
I'm cool. That's what I wanted to be on your show.
no, you're super cool. The dialogue is that like it's almost like you learn something, but then it's enjoyable. And I think that's something that we don't take, it's been taken for granted. And for me, I've had so many, like in LA, I've had so many surface level conversations where I'm talking to somebody for a good 15, 20 minutes. And I don't know what we're talking about, but we're just talking. You know what I mean? Like we're just talking. And then I'm like, all right, at some point, like maybe like the conversation will die down. And just as it dies down, someone's like, well, I'm like, okay, all right, cool. I gotta spring into like another, like long-winded discussion on something else. So it just feels good to be able to like sense genuine energy. And when you have that type of energy, it changes moods.
Mm-hmm.
Like like if you're tired, like all of a sudden now you have the time for that. That's a good thing about you. I want you to recognize that because you're able to put people in a good mood. So that's a really attractive thing about your energy. But someone said Angel is an angel. I'm weak. But the bad thing, I don't say bad, but the other side of that is sometimes if you have that ability, it's like your energy is good. You may take on more than you're supposed to because you're able to influence the energy in your ecosystem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Okay.
And yes, it's kind of like I feel like I know how to be with people. Um, and I can make people feel at ease or like, I do really want, again, I do really want to understand and know like maybe it's unfortunate for people to know that really nothing is personal. Most like the majority of the time, you can't take anything personally.
Right.
So like that's always at the forefront of my mind with any, sometimes it's just a miscommunication, whatever it is, but it's like not about you. You're not that important, you know?
Mhm. Right.
So, so I don't know if that links
No, no, no,
correct,
no,
but
it does. And I feel like when you're on this type of wavelength with somebody and you value friendships, which is what it seems like you do, you will tend to over explain because you don't want that person to take you out of context. Because some people will, but you're like, oh, at least not that person, because I value the relationship with that person and I like the energy that they give. So I don't want them to so that might be something that you do. I do that for sure.
yeah, but I mean, I just I want everything explained to me. I think that's the autism stuff. Just the
Uh,
more information I have, especially like children with autism, they need their parents to explain everything. And if they're and because they're so observant, it's like if they see a pattern or situation in the family that doesn't make sense and they question it and they get pushback, who ends up being the black sheep of the family?
okay.
Like so it's I want to hold space for other people to feel safe to explain who they are and their situation because that's something I really needed, but didn't feel like always able to receive, and or be heard. So
Right, which is why for the people, whoever's around you, friendships, parents, relationships, it'd be cool for it to be reciprocated.
it would be cool. And I also got to say like some people take kindness for weakness,
Yeah,
and I'm really learning that.
the majority of people actually do.
Yeah, and I think people think I'm naive sometimes because I'm like, I don't know, I just don't. But definitely when I was younger, I always thought people thought I was stupid. That's one thing where you kind of like know you have some kind of learning deficit of sorts, and I would like try and overcompensate in other ways, or seeming naive because I genuinely was interested in people. And neurotypical people, I learned, are more inclined to think that they're like sizing everyone up when they're having interactions with them.
Yeah.
They're like, what's your intention? What's this thing or that thing? And for me, I'm like, oh, cool. You do this thing. That's interesting. And like, I genuinely just want to know what
Yeah.
you
No,
feel.
no, no, and I believe that. I believe that. I don't know if that's. Uh, I can't sit and say knowing about what I know about autism. I can't sit and say that that's an autism thing, but it is in line with autism in a way. But, yeah,
Mm,
yeah. I don't have any evidence to prove it, but that thing where, like if you, for example, let's take you. If you say, "I don't care," you have whatever followers. I'm like, oh, she might be telling the truth. If I hear that LA, I'm like, yeah.
oh, yeah.
Because I don't, I'm just naturally skeptical. But then if it's somebody who doesn't put stock into these things, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
they might actually be, that might be how they actually feel.
I did want to point out a couple things.
Yeah,
And I think this is also part of why I do like I'm starting to do consultations with musicians and doing some emphasis on musicians with neurodivergent brains is that when you are that authentic of an artist or like a person in an industry where you're trying to survive, and trying to, make some kind of success in it, that your authenticity is rarely rewarded. But if you
Mhm.
can't be anything other than that, like, also, my honesty so many times has been used against me as punishment. That's how I've experienced it. Where, like,
Yeah.
I'm telling somebody something, and then, like, all of a sudden, that was a really bad thing to say, to be
Mhm.
honest. And I'm like, "Oh, so I don't really know how to navigate in certain ways." Like, the music I make is very authentic to myself, and so in that way, it's not gonna be, like, super popular music. Authenticity is, like, in a weird way, is like, it's like a it creates humility. It
Yeah.
creates, like, actual kinda type of regulation in a world where otherwise people can go off the deep end and, like, do whatever they want. Um, so
No, but as long as you know that not everybody is that authentic, uh, and that's one thing I do sense in my community. People are like, there's less cap on here. When people say something, I actually believe the comment section. Like people really believe what they say, because sometimes it's embarrassing. Why would somebody admit to this? Why would somebody admit to that? You know,
Mm,
people are honest. Right. So here's the thing. I would say that with another neurodivergent individual, even if they don't like what's being said, you can respect the honesty a bit better.
hmm,
It becomes harder for guys within a heteronormative relationship because there's just that ego, and there's no way around it. The ego is always there. But I think you can at least respect where somebody's coming from because you have the truth in the world where you have to go through somebody's phone for the truth. You know, you have to get a private investigator. So if somebody's giving you the truth straight up, that's that's not the norm.
yeah,
Not the norm as well.
yeah, that got me thinking about a lot of stuff.
I definitely can think about a couple of different things that would be tough to hear, and I'm not sure if everything should be said. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if everything should be said. I I do believe in 95% authenticity, a little 5% mask, a little 5% mask.
Yeah, yeah,
Just like, hold up.
I know, yeah, I don't say, like, every single thing. I definitely know how to, um I definitely understand, like, the timing of certain when certain conversations need to be had, or, like, what are the only necessary things to say in this conversation, or, um, being complimentary in a way that feels authentic to myself. Like, maybe I saw someone's show and, like, the music was okay, but I can talk about what I appreciated that they did. But I don't wanna lie to them either, so I'm like, "That was really this thing you did was really beautiful. That's something I really like that you did." So,
And that's a nice way to say that there's room for improvement. And that's probably you being a musician as well, knowing that okay, like it sucks like after like you've had a bad show and then people are like, oh, that show was bad. You're like, I know the show was bad, but you have to say it.
never
The
had a
honest
bad show in
review.
my
Oh, you
life.
never.
Just kidding. No, I mean, I also view things like, if you're brave enough to be an artist, you have to be vulnerable to some
Hmm.
extent, and you have to be willing to show your process in front of the public.
Hmm.
So it's like, that also is gonna make you question your authenticity and, like, who you are regularly.
You're right.
So, there's certain parts of myself, yeah, I don't know what I'm getting at now because my brain's going in many directions yet again, but, like, um, there's like, um, I just, like, kinda yeah, yeah, like you were saying, like, 95% real and 5% mask or whatever. It's
Hmm.
like, I don't know, I just, maybe part of me being so honest is I don't feel like I have anything to hide, and if you're a good artist, you have something to say,
Yeah.
and you're gonna have to back it. you're going to have to back your beliefs, because if you're going into interviews and people are what if your creativity is meant to be private? If your creativity is meant, I'm not, that's, I guess, for whoever to choose how they want to use their creativity. I'm to answer this question that it popped up.
Yeah, I saw it, and uh, I don't think I understand the question all the way.
Um, I mean, it's maybe you're asking like Candace if you just want to be creative, but you don't want to necessarily share that. It's just for you,
And potentially,
or do you think it's like not someone's like not gonna validate that, and they're gonna tell you it's meant to not be shared?
I think that's what I'm not sure what Candace meant. I think that's what Candace said. Uh,
But I mean,
mhm.
anyway, just there's what am I getting at? I just think like I'm finally actually learning the ASD stuff has helped me to like really start to speak up more about who I am and what I believe in.
Mm,
Oh,
what?
creativity will always be validated. The question of what validation means is the would be what would want to be clarified. Like every idea is validated through
What you
another
mean?
person.
I mean,
Second one.
and I agree. Validation is subjective. My creativity needs to be expressed, but I don't share with many. I don't trust people to see without tearing me down. Okay. I, I
Oh
get.
yeah. So this is an interesting thing to me about, and maybe we can talk about creativity for a second, because I'm sure there's tons of people here who are very creative.
Talk to them.
You cannot care what other people like. You cannot care about um the criticism. If you really believe that you're an artist or you need to do your art, you really need to just value the people you respect and their validation of you. That to me is the difference. People might tear it down. People have written very, very violent things about me on comment boards, very sexist things, very negative things. And I don't read a lot of my reviews and things of that nature, because it doesn't, it's just someone's opinion. But there's enough people that can give you critical, positive feedback. And I want that. Like, I want that. I do want like my creativity be interactive with a certain, group of people who I respect. And then, you know, I think the more you discover your voice and who you are, like you're kind of impenetrable, because you've developed this thing that no one else
Yeah.
gets to own except you. That's your spirituality too. That's your path. No one gets to take that away from you. So someone might try and tear you down, but that's really only if you want them to. There's always another way. There's always another way. You can always innovate. How do I cope with that negativity? I don't really read the comments. I mean, sometimes, or I
These are
know
probably
myself.
beginners.
What's that?
These are probably like beginners into the content space. I'm thinking
Into the what space?
into the creative arts content space. They're probably like they haven't started yet. I'm assuming.
Some of the people in the comments section?
Yeah. I'm
Uh,
assuming.
yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
agree with everything you're saying. I'm just saying they're probably new because these are the thoughts that we all had in the beginning, and after a while you learn not to care.
I didn't have these thoughts.
Oh,
This is
oh,
a weird thing about, I don't, maybe I did, but like I just wanted to make stuff. And maybe because I grew up when I started doing music, we just like had MySpace.
mm,
I'm a little bit older, so um
mm, top 8. MySpace. Some of that things shouldn't be shared. Uh, well,
uh,
potential. I share as much as I can. And that's, I mean, it just depends on what you want. I just put it all out there because you just never know who's gonna latch onto it and see. Just getting big and finding the rejection, it comes, but there's just something, and I'll let you talk about this. But Tiffany, whenever you whenever you stop caring, that's really the first day of the rest of your life. You know, you stop caring, and with respect, like the people who are closest to me, who know me, when they say things, those opinions do matter. I won't lie, to a certain extent. But when you stop caring, it's very liberating.
You know, I've been watching these Temple Grandin videos lately, and she says one thing I found very important. And
Who Temple? Who?
Temple Grandin. So Temple Grandin's like a pretty famous autistic woman who became like an industrial designer for, and like what she's most famous for was designing this cattle routing in factory farms so that the cattle would just go to the slaughter without getting terrified, because you have to learn how to direct them in a way so that they stay calm enough to go and do what they do, go die. But she created a more humane version of that and has been a big advocate speaking up on autism. And one of the things that I found very important that she said is that people with autism, they need to be stretched. You need to stretch them. And that's the kind of, that's what opens them up and gives them more confidence, because these are very intelligent, sensitive people. Of course, like that criticism can feel really hard when you get it, but it's like exposure therapy. You know, like the more you slowly open yourself up and try, the more confidence you're going to gain. Like I'm playing, you know, little concerts in houses when I first started doing music. And then eventually I've played at Madison Square Garden. I've played at Carnegie Hall. I said that.
Congratulations! Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of stuff as a musician. And like,
That's why I like going into things blind. Like I don't know what you do. Right? I'm just, you know.
yeah, I
That's
sang
cool.
on that U2 album that was forced onto your phone in 2014. Like,
Um, I don't know.
whatever. I'm tooting my own horn right now, but
No,
yeah,
should talk your shit. But continue. My bad.
no, I'm just saying, like, I mean, I'm like a featured vocalist on a Flying Lotus record. I sang on the albums with like the Roots, and like I've done a lot of things because I had the determination to do it and the love of music behind me. And so I pushed. And that means having to get on stage and play a shitty show a lot, many, many times. It means putting out songs that are embarrassing, that I wish I never put out, and that people are going to criticize. But if there's something deep enough inside of you, you will push and you will end up in situations that are amazing. I have been in like amazing, I played at Radio City Music Hall with David Byrne. You know, I got to do these amazing things in Dirty Projectors. And I've made amazing friends in music that are just so valuable to me, because more so it's just like believing in yourself is really important. It is really important. And it sounds very cliche, but it's very true.
Mhm.
Like, this is your life. If you're a creative person and you really feel that, don't even think about, really try hard to not like compare yourself to other people. Your art's probably never going to come out exactly the way you want it to, at least not in my case. But it's more about the practice. So, um,
Yeah, big fan.
yeah, I don't like that song. But thank you.
About.
I mean, that's fine. That's a fine song. It was from a very long time ago.
Oh,
Anyway,
is this a real song of yours or something?
yeah, it was from
Oh,
like 10 years ago.
oh, okay. Oh, okay. Wow.
So anyway, I mean, I definitely people who are like these artist mind people with ASD, for example, or like some of the most amazing musicians I know have ADHD. They're like, I like don't know how they're doing what they're doing. And they're just like, I have to make 1,000 different tracks in like 2 days. And I'm like, okay, you go do that. And then like a lot of it's really cool. But like um these are the artistic brains. And unfortunately, we're all sensitive to like rejection or criticism, and especially those who are neurodivergent have already been experiencing a level of criticism their entire lives because they've felt so misunderstood in general.
Mhm.
So then having to go to the next level with that and express yourself, it is hard. I get why it's hard and you don't want that criticism, but like you got to do it. And it's okay to be like, it took me a long time to be okay with like noting my accomplishments, even because
I,
you feel like an imposter.
I heard you talking, and I was gonna let you keep going on because I used to feel that way as well. But if the people around you, if it feels like you're bragging when you're listing off your accomplishments, it just means that your people, you might not have the right folks around you. They should celebrate these things about you.
Yeah. Sometimes you get like the, "Oh, okay," response, or someone's like, "Cool." And if someone told me their accomplishments, I would be like, "Cool. That's really cool. What was that like for you?"
Right. So likewise, you should get the same.
Yeah. I also think there's like room for everybody to be creative, to be expressive, and
Not
that
everybody will take that shot though.
a lot of people won't.
Mhm.
And I just think they should.
Mhm.
Like, cannot be motivated by fear.
This is a real good question. Oh, no, go ahead. After that thought, don't lose that thought. Don't lose that thought. But after that thought, I'd like to know your thoughts on this question.
This is fine. So, do you
Like,
think
you may
that
have lost that thought already.
being autistic, when you have these thoughts, you have more self-compassion for these things, like self-compassion around like the feelings of being like criticized or um I'm not
Since being,
more compassion for I might not know exactly how you mean that question.
I'm thinking that she means since being autistic,
Well,
are you more compassionate for yourself?
yes, definitely. I'm not fighting my needs as hard right now. Um, and it feels very weird, but I definitely think people have massive capability to change in certain ways that can affect even your body. I know like my brain might be wired a certain way and it might be harder for me to do certain things like self-care stuff, which I try to do constantly. And it's like so exhausting, but I have to do it. Um, but I also believe in like what Temple Grandin was saying, like I'm like stimming. I'm talking to you.
It's all good. This is a safe space.
Safe space. It was stim over here. Um, no, just like I don't really like that these things are called disorders because it implies that like you might be like incapable of change too. It's like I've learned so much from neurotypical people and I'm grateful for learning from them. And I don't want to live in a world where with just people who are neurodivergent. I want to live in a world with everybody and everybody uses their talent, skills, and abilities together. Like that's why I think like it's really cool that some schools are starting to do mixed classrooms where there's more neurodivergent kids mixed in with the neurotypical kids in regular classes, and they learn some of those neurotypical kids will learn like compassion for the ways that the neurodivergent kids have to learn in a different way. And what am I getting at? But like I do think there's some stuff that I guess probably won't change about me, like my inability to I mean, I can lie, of course, but like
Mhm.
don't feel like I need to and I don't really want to most of the time. And then like I don't think I'll ever be like pro-capitalist. I'm very like anarchist. And in the sense of like a certain type of anarchism, which is like about organizing and like respecting everyone in your community in the sense that like we can all be utilized and we can all trade roles at times and like be more democratic in the approach so everyone feels useful,
Mhm.
which everyone wants to feel useful.
You know, it's interesting. I've never really thought about where I stand with capitalism. This is not something I think about often, but there's a lot of things from capitalism that I would like to take and mix some humanity and take away some greed, which is kind of an oxymoron. Capitalism and greed go hand in hand, but I'm okay with a lot of capitalism just for the competition purposes, and then you bring the human side into it. But with you being like anti-capitalistic, or however you say it, like I like hearing your thoughts. I like hearing you talk,
Thanks.
even if it's not what I agree with. It might not, probably won't change where I stand with certain things, but it's just really cool hearing you elaborate your thoughts.
Thank you. I mean, I think
I mean,
like the one of the reasons why I really feel there's some aspects, of course, of capitalism that like they're all ingrained into us, and we're always going to be kind of
right.
competitive or like have to feel like we're fending for ourselves. But you know, I've read a lot of history and like just read this like gigantic book called The Great Cosmic Mother, and it's like the history of matrilineal, matrifocal societies since like the Neolithic era. So all of the influence of women in history that's been written out. And these are like the pagan societies, the pagan religions, and these were the peaceful societies because they were ran in a more anarcho way where everyone had like there was more tolerance and roles and like there was in American Indian tribes there's 5 different genders, um, and that was never an issue of like gender orientation or identity. There's there's always been trans people, there's always been queer LGBTQ people throughout history, and in more of these matrifocal societies that was tolerated and people thrived better. There's like a ancient civilization called Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. They're unveiling all of these different, ancient cities or villages, and they go and exhume the bodies of the dead, and they can see, like in Göbekli Tepe, for example, that no one was killed by violent force in these societies. So it's so when I talk about like capitalism, it's also the stripping of like the divine feminine that we're not a lot of people aren't like even aware exists. And so that's why this is very violent, aggressive country. Capitalism is violent and aggressive inherently. And that's how we build power. And I mean, that doesn't really go for me, I guess. But I mean, I'm competitive in my own nature, no matter what, because I'm a capitalist, whether I like it or not.
Right. And that makes sense, even though, like, because of living in the US and just how things are, but you think on a different wavelength. Like, ideally, you'd prefer something else if it were a utopian society.
I don't think anything's ever. I do think there are much better ways of living, and I do think neurodivergent people are actually the path to that because they're the engineers, they're the innovators. A lot of them, a lot of these, most famous people like Einstein would be considered like autistic today, or Tesla, and these people revolutionized the world. Like they they discovered things that are like You can't go back after learning what they found out. So, and there's like our Buckminster Fuller, who was building these like utopian societies, like these very efficient houses and like transportation systems and things like that, that would have created like a better world for people now. It's just that capitalism wants to keep things very in control. I'm like, is the CIA going to come after me after this interview? I'm just kidding.
I won't let them. I won't let them. I got you. I'll tell my capitalistic buddies to lay off on you.
Yeah.
Spare you. They'll spare
No,
you.
it's a very layered thing because, you know, some good things have come out of capitalism, of course, but like these, I think it's very proven that people are, they function much better in smaller organized communities where everyone feels useful. Again, to say that feels useful, everyone has a role and it's respected.
Mhm.
And that can't happen in capitalist societies because we live in mega societies that are far beyond our control. And there's really no, and you've seen it in LA all over. Ronald Reagan shut down all of the mental institutions in the 80s and just put tons of people out on the streets. And this mental health crisis has never been fixed.
Since the 80s.
Yeah, whenever Ronald Reagan was a governor of California, and I'm not good with some of the historical
I would
things
say
I'm telling you. I'm not
that would
perfect.
be late 70s, early 80s, probably. Yeah.
Well, he was president in what, 84 to something, whatever. But
Yeah, it must have been early 80s, late 70s at the earliest, for sure.
so I'm just saying, like, there's ways for the world to function, and like, I think like because like autistic brains are often very like problem solving oriented brains, and they can be either very like engineer oriented and like see the patterns or see how things connect in a certain way that they can be highly innovative people who can do a lot in their life and like make systems that work. Like eventually we will have to probably figure out how to like go to landfills and like compress all this garbage into bricks, which is what one civil engineer person did in Africa, and like learned how to build houses with garbage. Like you're sure to like life's giving you lemons. I would imagine that person's on the spectrum who invented the trash bricks and is a civil engineer.
I wouldn't be surprised. I have a question, and I want to answer. And I want to answer this before we end, and also I'll give you a chance to drop your links. And also, I think we should do this again. It's been very enjoyable talking to you,
Sure.
and just even talking to you in general. Like I'd like to talk to you. You're just nice to talk to.
Thanks.
Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
You're
I
like,
just love talking to, I just love like hashing out all these ideas and like these, and it's just nice to hear what you have to say or how you view it, because this is important. Like
Right.
dialogue is very important. I
right,
think.
but it's a genuine, like, because I would not have stayed here this long if I wasn't learning something. Like, because I have an ADHD brain, I'm gonna tune out on board. But I'm actually like I like hearing you talk. That's a very unique compliment. You know,
I'm an ADHD.
right? But I like hearing you talk. But you mentioned something about self care earlier, and you've been talking about capitalism. And yeah, I was like, I need to come back to that point. And obviously, we talked about community a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of you being autistic, identifying with the everything that you've gone through in your whole life, and identifying with this condition, when it comes to asking for help, because I believe that all autistic people, every autistic person, will have to rely on external forces for help. Now, how much help, it depends, like on, They develop like if they can't communicate, they'll need a lot of help. And then you have like what would we call Asperger's. They might not need as much help. How much of the self care piece ties into the capitalism? And then for you to feel supported, what type of help would you need from the people around you, friendships, relationships, your community, whatever your community is to you?
Can you ask the first question again about self-care and capitalism?
Oh, so the first question is, you mentioned self-care and how difficult it is. How much of that do you think is influenced by capitalism and where we are today? Like I'm talking about 2024, this economy, how things are going.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second piece is, in order for your minimal self-care needs to be met, how much help do you need from the people around you, friendships, relationships, parents, your community, or what type of help more specifically?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I definitely think self-care is getting harder because we are moving into a depression and economic crisis right now,
I
and rent
completely
has never
agree.
been higher. So everyone's going to be busting their buns.
You said
And
what has never been higher?
rent.
Yeah. I agree.
So, that's one huge challenge because that's a huge chunk of your income going
Yeah,
just to rent every month.
I
And
agree.
I figured out systems that work for me because I found a place that's pretty cheap. I don't buy a lot of unnecessary things. I like my monotropic mind will like go study and figure out how to like what's the best foods for me to eat and like what's the best like products for me to use. And then I try to only buy that stuff and not go into excess and then try and build my whatever like little self-care routine I have. And then I'm always trying to find ways to make money. And that can then contributes to like the difficulties of battling meltdown and burnout because I need to support
Mhm.
myself financially, but I also need to not like put my body into hyper vigilant mode constantly.
Uh,
So this is what I'm learning now. I mean, it's really, really challenging and it's getting harder. And that's why I'm
mm,
starting to talk more. And like, that's why I reached out to you because I was like, our communities are going to start suffering. I talk about the music community because that's what the one I'm from and the one that I feel like I can speak on and for. But we're going to need to start finding ways to support each other
yeah,
because this is not sustaining anymore.
yeah,
Where we're going right now in the economy. So when I reach out to people, I don't ask for a lot of help from anyone. I think that's another thing where it's like I ask my sister for help. That's pretty much it. And that's usually to regulate my nervous system because she's a somatic therapist and she's my best friend. So we can talk and she can
mhm.
help me with all this body dissociative stuff that I experience. She's like my exact opposite. So I'm like, cool. It's like nice for me. She fills in all of my all of my blanks. It
That's super cool. Uh,
is cool. I'm very grateful I have my sister. Like so, so grateful. Wow.
if- if-
That's even one person who can
yeah,
help you with your needs. And I feel really bad asking her to help me sometimes, but I'm like, I don't know what I would do without her.
yeah. Wow. And, wow. I can relate. I have five siblings, and normally when I need help, I go to my younger sister and my younger brother, like right after me, because my older siblings are married. So
Mhm.
my next sibling and the next two, well, actually all three, but being able to have them uh, is, yeah, it's, I don't have the words. And for people who only have one person in your life, one person like is a lot. One
Mhm.
person goes a long
It
way, and
really is. That's what I realized. I was like, what if she was just gone? Who would it be? Who could ever fill that role in my life? I'm so so lucky to have just this one person.
Yeah.
And people are lonely and they're feeling very isolated and they're feeling
Yeah.
like they can't reach out to anyone. And maybe that also goes into like me wanting to counsel musicians because and start just like speaking more on this stuff because people do feel alone. And it's hard to find your place in a community too, even if you feel like you're part of it in some way, like to feel like really supported by it is that can take a while. It took me a really long time to find the music community that I feel comfortable in.
Hmm.
It took me 15 years probably.
Wow.
So, um yeah. So I learned how to ask for help in the last like 5 to 7 years of my life. So that was really hard. We must really feel like a burden. I think a lot of us feel like burdens
Right.
to the rest of the world.
But I hope you can see that. I mean, anytime you ask for help, you're gonna feel like a burden because you need something and they can provide. So you're not in a position of power. It's gonna happen. But I hope you can see, just looking at all of the people who have tuned in, and even if this is just me and you, I hope you can see that a lot of people are digging your vibe. A lot of people care about you, and I'm just I'm in awe of like this, the authenticity. Uh, I think it's a beautiful thing, and it's really hard to be yourself. You know, like, it's really hard to
Yeah.
be, because I just catch myself on a day-to-day basis, like trying to do things. I'm like, hold up, no, that's not me. But then I'm like, why do I have to like think to be myself? Like, what? It's not.
Mhm.
I don't default to myself. So people who know themselves, when they get around the average person, sometimes it's a little bit too much for people because you're holding up a mirror,
Mhm.
done the work, and they're like, "God, this is too much. She's talking crazy." But I no, I'm grateful to hear your perspectives and your thoughts. No, like I don't. Yeah, I don't have to worry. It's been really, and I've learned a lot too. I've learned a lot, and it also just brings me closer to myself because on this journey, I'm always looking, like I'm always asking myself, who am I meeting? Like, why am I meeting? Like,
Yeah.
why? Because I'm on a very interesting journey, uh, So, and even like tonight, like I was like, I'm in an awful mood. Alexander, Alexander, hey, it's like that. I was in an awful mood. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get back to this angel guy later. And this was this was this was so dope. And my thing, I don't like, and like the vibes. I'm feeling good vibes from you, so there's no need to really over explain. But whenever somebody says something about me that's nice, I almost want to ask, like, why do you think that? I think highly of myself. You say that, like, why? Because it's easy for people to say, oh, you're so cool, or you're so amazing, or like people will say all kinds of things to you. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was saying compliments can kill somebody. Like you can put so much praise and compliments onto somebody to where you can keep them in a state of mind that's not beneficial to who they are.
Mhm.
So I'm always like, okay, like, yeah, you say you like me, you say you love me, you say I'm so smart, I'm so, why? Like, why are you saying these things? And
Mhm.
I'm thinking, but why? I'm so complimentary of you, and I think it's just the knowing yourself part, because when you get that deep to knowing yourself, and this almost feels like one of those shroom talks. You're in California, so you know what I'm talking about. People are like, what's going on? But
Uh-huh.
when you get so, you know what I'm talking about. When you get that deep into knowing yourself, at some point you get to certain parts where you're like, I don't like what I'm seeing here, and you have to keep pushing. And then once you can stand up to yourself, nothing really scares you. And then once you're fearless, then you can do things like randomly. send me an email, or just take chances. Like, you just have to take chances in life. Just have to take
Yeah.
chances. And yeah, no, I'm very impressed, and I feel like I'm a pretty good reader of energy for the most part. I could be wrong, but no, the just your journey is a beautiful one, and you're very easy to root for.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I really like just having discussions. There's something very, to me, it's just important, you know. And I think I've really benefited from seeing, people on YouTube doing interviews and whatever, and I feel like I can add my voice into that a little bit more now. Um and yeah, I do really want to know myself in this life, and I think it's really important that everybody does, because if we all did that, like, the
Mhm.
world would look very different.
Right.
There'd be a lot less projection and a lot more tolerance.
Yeah. And you'd be coming from a good place. I wanted to ask her for a song, but I didn't want to put her on the spot.
Oh, no.
We don't have to put her on the spot. We don't have to put her on the spot. Maybe we get a song at some other time. But I do think. Do you do YouTube or no?
No, I don't. I just have Instagram. I'm really bad at technology. Like, I don't wanna be on social media very much. So I just do Instagram for now.
So you're not a big fan of social media, like all the way?
I don't like being on it. It makes me feel really, like, after a while, it's very exhausting. I have to take long breaks from it. But,
Mhm.
I have thought about doing, like, YouTube channels and maybe doing things that are, like, kind of educational, but I haven't really figured out how to mix all of my special interests in a way that, like, makes sense. So, and it's a lot of work, and I'm already doing feel like I'm doing a lot all the time. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I can see. And my ADHD brain is like, oh no, I got this other thing to do. You try this one and this one and that one.
Yeah, yeah.
But that leads to that eventual burnout, which is like
Mhm.
not fun at all.
Yeah, it's like, how do you temper these things? How do you balance? And I think too, like, that's probably why I live the life that I live. Just because it's like, I do need things to be like, I know I want to be this kind of person and be this kind of way. So how do I find that innovative through way to get there? And I
Mhm.
don't think I've achieved that entirely, because I'm, like, not always living in stability, but I don't regret my life at all. I think, like, I'm really glad I took all those risks, and maybe that's, like, what my purpose is here in this round of life. So, but now I would love to just be more supportive to others. I've been, like, trying to find ways to move it more into a place where I can be of service, I guess.
Well, you have a lot to give. You have a lot to give. And however you want to give it is fine. Like, there's no rush. Because I used to be like, no, you got to get on this platform. No, you don't. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do.
Yeah. I think if you really, like, staying close to your intuition too, and your goals, like, everything is showing you an answer, or is like, if you're paying attention, you'll see how everything is actually supporting you. And
Yeah.
it is hard to sometimes change your mentality to start noticing those things, or to think you're good enough to deserve those things. But it's
Yeah.
all there.
I was just gonna get to that part too. Uh, I don't want to get too deep, but it's like, yeah, you have to really feel like you can.
Mhm.
And once again, like, when a great man or a great woman stumbles, I look at the people around them. I really do, and I feel like they're somewhat complicit in that person's fall, because when you see greatness, you're supposed to like uplift that. That's what my real friends have done. I found out who my real friends were this past
Mhm.
year, like past all of the extra superfluous stuff. And what they do for me, it's a crime that you'd want the approval of others, when like my real day ones are right here. The
Mhm.
things they say about me, the things that they do to protect me, and when you have good people around you, they'll remind you of who you are, uh,
Yes.
and what you can do, and you won't you won't doubt yourself. Because like if everybody knew what they were capable of, you would get up right now and start doing, or tomorrow you would start doing. But like, why would you do it if you haven't done it before? Like if you've
Mhm.
never put concrete evidence of, oh, I can put these things together. If I can string these many days in a row of this without like getting tired, it's hard to believe in yourself. And I see a little, I see a little bit of self-limiting belief, but I know you can do it. I know you can do it.
Me?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
you.
with or
Yeah.
something?
Oh, no, do whatever you want, whether it's YouTube or because you have a voice. People will listen to you. People will
I
listen to you.
guess so. Yeah. I mean, I don't
And I
know.
think so. People will listen to you.
I definitely am, to kind of comment on what you just said. I'm hanging out with a very select amount of friends right now because I'm getting out of burnout. So, like, I can't expend my energy too much. And I am so deeply grateful for those people who are around me. One being my sister, and two being people that live in the house with me. And I couldn't be more grateful. I gotta say, there's like a love and respect and friendship there, where it's like, especially if some people are single and they feel very alone, and
Hmm.
sometimes your friends are your partner,
Yeah,
instead of your partner,
yeah.
and that, like, sometimes we feel like we can't do something because we're just thinking about it in our heads, and we don't know that, like, hey, I can call my friend, and like
Mhm.
maybe my friend will like just do some emails with me on Monday. Maybe like we just sit next to each other and do the emails. And that's a sign of support.
Hmm.
And that's just a small step in getting further on your own path to where you feel good, is just that camaraderie. And that goes back to community too, where it's like the more we can be supportive of each other, the more we can thrive and
Yeah,
see the best parts of ourselves.
yeah. No, no, you're completely right. And some things aren't meant to be done by yourself. Like
Yeah.
some things aren't meant to be done by yourself. Like I'm learning, I'm taking notes, I'm figuring out, okay, what can I do? What can't I do? At some point, you'll burn. Burnout. You talk about it. It's not a good look. Your body just tells you can't do anything. Everything has to stop, whether you like it or not.
It's brutal.
Yeah,
God.
it's not sexy at all.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's awful. But no, I am really rooting for you. But doing could be doing doesn't have to be a YouTube channel, but doing could just be doing for you, like
Yeah.
whatever it is, like being. And you strike me as somebody who doesn't naturally like you tend to do for others first, but it's like being selfish is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think the burnout is teaching me that. That's like the blessing of the burnout. It was like I have to pay attention to myself first. It's
Yeah,
very uncomfortable, and like I can't have certain people in my head at all, like because I can get distracted by relationships and things like that. And this was the first time in a very long time where I was like, you have to be very selfish.
yeah.
And I'm glad I got like a lot done
No,
in a
it's
very
good.
short period of time.
No, it's good. Like this, like I don't know what the word is. There's no mental of the word to capture what I'm looking for. But you have something. Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
you have something.
this is something I love. Like, I just wanted us to share our philosophies. I
Mhm.
love seeing where people are at, and like just everyone is gifted and wonderful. And I I mean, there's a lot of horrible stuff in the world, but I feel like if people were more supportive of each other, that we would be in a lot better position in general. So, as human beings.
No, I agree. I agree, and it's hard when we live in the world that we live in. you normally get punished for just supporting, outside of your friends. You get punished, and we know what LA is like, but I still love Los Angeles. Don't get me wrong, I love Los Angeles, but I think when you get around the right people and you learn yourself and you just go all in on being selfish, like
Yeah.
like I have a good feeling we'll talk again. I have a good feeling we'll stay in touch. But just I'm just like just you owe nobody nothing. For real.
And nobody owes me anything.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Well,
yeah, let's talk again sometime.
no, for sure, for sure. I'll message you on Instagram. Somebody said she has awareness, she has hope, she realized the truth of ADHD. Well, it was autism TikTok, but maybe she's undiagnosed ADHD. Look at me trying to diagnose people.
I think maybe like a little ADD, but I'm like very like crazy organized sometimes about certain things. But I lose something every day. Like I'll lose my keys or my wallet, or like I can't find something because I'll never put it back where it's supposed to go.
That's not a little ADD. That's
little ADHD. I don't know.
This felt authentic. This is super. It just feels good to have a real conversation.
Oh yeah, I love it. I'm here for it.
Now, this is super dope. I'm not gonna hold you up all night, but this is one of the more enjoyable live streams I've had. Thank you for
thanks.
coming on. I appreciate you. I'll shoot you a message. I got something for you. Actually, hold up. 1 second. 1 second. Oh, okay. I didn't know if I brought it or not. I was in such a hurry. Something told me to bring it. I was like, should I bring this or not? But yeah, so here is a autographed copy of my book. I'll sign it. I'll get it over to you.
Thanks.
I appreciate your time. So I'll get that over to you. You can send me a shipping address or whatever, or however you'd like me to get that book to you. But I will get that book to you. I appreciate you. Like I said, let's stay in touch, and let's definitely do this again because it didn't feel forced. Is this just real shit? It's not it's just a real conversation.
Yeah, I didn't think you were going to respond to my email, so I'm really grateful for that, and I was really excited to talk to you. So I really appreciate you giving me your time.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, and shout out to John for catching the email. And also, sometimes I'm just in different moods. He was like, "You want to bring this person onto your show?" I was like, "Yeah, let's bring him on." Like it just. I'm very happy you came because this is authentic energy that even me, I think I'm authentic, but I just want to be with more people that help me be myself. So I truly appreciate you. And like I said, I'll shoot you an email, and we definitely have to do this again whenever you have time.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right.
And talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
I don't even know how to get out of here.
Yeah, I think I hit end stream. And for those on TikTok, so a lot of people on TikTok are just now like following, and they don't want the stream to end. But TikTok, we will do this again. I think she's a star. I think she's amazing.
Oh yeah, my Instagram's.
Yeah, I forgot. Oh, Mickey, Figgy, I'm sorry. So people on Facebook and people on TikTok, we can't end the stream without putting her socials on here. My bad.
I really only have Instagram because it's all I can handle. So I just lump everything on there right now, which is not the best. But maybe I should just type my Instagram.
Yeah. Just type it in there, and then we will. I'll click it and put it there for everybody.
Oh, I'll just spell it because it's making me like connect to YouTube or something, and I don't want to mess anything up. This is my technological ineptitude. Anyway, my Instagram is called At Deradoom, DERADOOM.
DARA.
DERADOOM. M
DER
is in Mickey Mouse.
DERADOOM.
No. Hold on. Oh yeah, no, I can't do it. D, like my last name. So it's Dara, like my
Okay.
last name, and then DOOM, like Doom.
Doom.
I just mixed half my name with and then Doom. So yeah. There you go. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Instagram.
so and also, if there's musicians, not to sound like all self-pluggy and everything, but I am doing counseling services. So if people are musicians and have questions, it's a donation-based system I have. And I'm also a Vedic astrologer, which is not donation-based, but I do readings for people. So yeah, that's all on the Instagram thingy. But yeah.
So you do counseling for musicians, and then you do
Vedic astrology.
what
It's a
does that mean?
different system. It's the Indian system from India. So
Did you go to India to learn that, or?
no, I studied with a teacher online. But yeah.
That's tight. I'm like, I don't know what that is.
It's
But
it's not like that. There's it's all like the same signs and all that stuff. But yeah, it's like your rising sign is your sign in the system, and everything goes back a sign pretty much because of because it's the astronomical placements of planets versus the Western system, which is based off the calendar. So anyway, it's a lot to explain.
okay,
But yeah.
we'll say it for next time. Also, so people on TikTok said Dara Doom. She has a voice. Yeah, no, I definitely think she has a voice. She got a voice. She can talk to the masses. TikTok. And
Should I go on TikTok?
say again.
Should I start a TikTok?
Uh,
I've never been on TikTok.
So, like, I don't know if you ask me, are you asking rhetorically, or you want my opinion?
No, you can. Yeah, give me your opinion. I don't know. Yeah,
You should
give me
start.
your opinion.
You should start TikTok. You start YouTube and do YouTube Shorts. You should keep up with Instagram. You should start Facebook. Automated, of course. I mean, like, I got a system, but like you should be everywhere. You should put your face. It might feel a little bit narcissistic, but you have like real energy. Like you have a lot to give, and like it's not contrived. Because me and you know what contrived looks like being in LA. Like we know, you know, LA is still the greatest city on earth, but like and like nobody's 100% themselves all the time, but like when you try and get closer to yourself, everybody's searching for that. Like everybody's trying to get closer to themselves. So, and the thing that people will latch onto, I don't know what they'll latch onto, but they'll latch onto one thing and they'll want that all the time. And you have different parts of yourself, but like I would put it out like it's really good energy. It's good energy, but social media can also be a beast too.
Yeah.
Just from my life, like it's yeah. And the hardest part is the coming up part. Very confusing mentally.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it settled down for me. But it was confusing for a while.
Yeah,
It was
I can
confusing
imagine.
for a while. I just think you have good energy. You should put it out to the people. And somebody says, I believe YouTube videos have a bit bigger impact. So this is Sky Fillmore on TikTok. I agree. I feel like YouTube would be like, yeah, like you look like a YouTuber.
What's up, YouTube?
No, I think you're a YouTuber. Like just talking
I
about you
love YouTube.
because now they're doing this thing where social media is moving away from like people with big platforms and like they want like authentic people. So like they want you to be relatable. Uh, they're like doing like
Yes.
this anti-influencer movement, which I don't necessarily care for. Like Like, why are you going after influencers? But either way, they want real people. Uh, and like, I feel like I'm talking to somebody back in Georgia, or like it's just like a dope combo, you know? It's a,
Cool.
it's a dope combo. And I think you learn a lot by yourself um, on the journey. And then YouTube can be monetized too. So like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have some ideas that I'm gonna slowly. I'm finishing an album right now, so I got to do that, and then I can start on some other projects. But I appreciate your words and your encouragement, and I've thought about it for a while, and I don't know. It's. I mean, I think sometimes like the ASD actually makes me so stressed out about adding anything else to my life, and like being consistent on social platforms is like terrifying to me. So because I don't want to be on them all the time.
right. But even you saying that is, well, your people are like, oh, she was honest with us. And then they wait like every third month and you drop a video and it's like a holiday.
Yeah,
I just feel like things could work out for like anything could work out. I
yeah.
don't know. But your perspective is valuable. And like, I didn't want to go into it because like I could talk to you for a long, long time. And it's cool. Like, this is like super cool. I see somebody just shared their live right now. It's cool. Like, I've never actually tried this type of thing. Like, and my acting teacher always says, go for what's possible, not for what's probable.
Mhm.
That always sticks with my head. And I really, the coolest thing about this, it feels like we're having a private conversation that everybody's watching.
Definitely feels that way.
Because like
But I don't know where to stop the filter or the unfilteredness. So
I don't think that people want you to stop.
this is how I talk with a lot of my friends because we're just. I mean, we're all artists and we're trying to make sense of the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And it will take too long, but like my youngest brother, he's an artist and he makes really good music. He's really, really oh, someone said they're so upset that they missed it. Well, guess what? We gotta bring this woman back because she's dope. She's hella dope. 1.5 NYC fins. We're bringing her back. But I was saying, my younger brother, he's an artist, and musicians are interesting people because you get sensitive over your art. But he is like gonna be one of the greats. Like he's that good, but it's so hard when you're not where you want to be. And like I don't want to like get too deep into it, but being an artist and it's just difficult being an artist. And then because I tell them all the time, I said the music is not your problem. You're one of the best artists I've ever heard, but you have a life problem.
Mhm.
Music is easy, but a life problem. Like what do you need to structure your day to where you have some type of normalcy? We
Mhm.
can't be in the house all day. We can't be secluded. We have to go talk to people. We have to go, smell trees, shake hands, like that. Have some semblance of like a life.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of what I'm sure is going to come up in the counseling. I'm starting more of it in March, but I've already talked to some people and like I mean, I think the ASD, not to go on too much longer, but like with ASD and doing something like music,
Hmm.
I need so much time to just focus on the music in a day that there's something I'm inevitably going to sacrifice in return
Hmm.
for that amount of time I need to spend because we also have very hard times making transitions. So it's like
Yeah.
I have to be like, okay, at 2 to 6 is my window when I'm gonna make music, and if I mess something up before that, I take the risk of ruining the whole day. Or,
Mm.
like, if my insomnia is terrible and I start wake up later, then it's like I'm risking ruining my day. So, it's, uh
Mm.
it's pretty hard, I think, for a lot of especially if you're, like, introverted and you're creative,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's a
That's exactly who he is. He's introverted and he's creative. And my parents are like, he needs to get a real job. I'm like, yeah, let him get a job for like routine, but like he's different.
Mhm.
He might not be able to go to school for 8-9 years like me, but like he has his own intelligence. I think it's super cool.
Yeah. And it is about just finding these different ways to cater to people's needs so that they can thrive. And it's really hard for artists. It's really hard for neurodivergent people too in these systems. And like we have to kind of figure out ways to build our own communities or systems to be more supportive of each other. And I'm only just scratching the surface of this kind of way of thinking or like acting. This is the very beginning for me, but like I've been thinking about it for a very long time. So I want to see these people.
The acting?
Just being like more active in the community. So like just be like your brother, for example, like maybe he finds his way into a community so he can have different perspectives from other musicians and how they live their life and how they've figured out systems that work for them that maybe could be of service to him so that he can feel more whole. That's kind of what I mean about making these communities so we can share our knowledge with each other, and then we can, you know, find ways to survive where we don't feel like we're just hanging off the edge of a cliff half the time. You know, like, or like maybe your brother doesn't want a job, doesn't need a job. Maybe your brother like does manual labor 3 times a week by himself because he's introverted, and then he makes and then that the other 4 days he gets to just do music or something. Like these finding the right work for the type of person he is, or like me, I would rather work alone and do like manual labor.
Really?
And do my music or something. Yeah. Yeah. I could like garden or paint houses or do things like that all easily. It's just anything that's very hyper focused. And like there's not a lot coming in sensory wise.
That's part of why you like living by yourself?
Oh yeah. I can control everything in this space. It's like all the lighting, what it smells like, you know, levels of blanket comfort. Everything.
So if you're in a relationship, would you have like a separate room, separate section of the house? Have you heard people doing that type of thing?
When I've been in relationships?
Right. Would you do like a separate section of the house?
I have. Yeah.
Was it helpful or not helpful?
To have like different sections?
Right.
We shared like a room, but like we would get some of my past relationships. I've always had a room at least where I can do music if I'm living with someone, or like another relationship. We had a big house and we both had 2 other bedrooms where we worked in our own rooms, or like 2 garage spaces. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. It seems like a very neurodivergent thing. Just needing a lot of space.
I need a ton of space.
Yeah.
I need like, and I don't always know when it's coming, but I'm getting like very into living alone right now and like not going out. And then I'm just like really excited about being at home. I'm like, don't get too excited.
You can't close yourself off from the whole world.
Rita's going to kill us.
Rita,
come back next time.
I saw Rita's comment.
Yeah. All right. Maybe we go on forever. Thanks everyone who listened out there.
Yeah, but that's a good thing. But yeah, what did Rita say? Oh, Rita's there. Soul's there. All right. So Rita, we should go to sleep, right?
Rita, you should call it for us.
All right. Okay. All right. So I'll let Rita call it. Rita, let us know what we should do. So Rita Hall, it's up to you. Rita, call it. All right. Yes, ma'am, Rita.
Well, there'll be another time.
All right, Rita, we will call it then. All right.
Good night, folks.
Good night. Good night. Angel, it was a pleasure, and I'll email you. I'll hit you on Instagram.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care.
See you later.
Someone said stay.
Bye.
All right, bye.